Okay, so tonight, I think we're good to call to order at 7:01. Let us review Tuesday's meeting minutes. Take a minute to read them, and then they look okay. Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday.
For a second.
Second that.
Garrett. Okay, roll call. Frank,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Garrett,
Yes.
Shane. And I guess you said yes, Shane. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Shane, you might be frozen in time. Dan?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't see Tracy yet. So, Shane, can you hear us okay? He's having some issues. He's on, but maybe having issues. Okay. Let's say minutes approved. Thank you. So tonight, we got Joe Conway from DPW. And Joe, do we just we went over fleet and then we went over FPC, so maybe start at the building section, I guess, to go through an initial review of that, whatever's left, and then what, water and maybe we can wait for water and sewer, or whatever you want to do. Do it all at once. It's up to you, Joe.
Those are pretty easy. I was thinking I'll defer to you, but excuse me, maybe we'll roll through buildings and do the question and answer part related to that. Sorry, man, the dry air is killing me.
Yeah.
And then I got a couple things I can update you on fleet at the end, depending on how much time we absorb, but we could do that.
Okay. Yeah. So do you want to pull up the list you sent, and then just you take it? All sounds good to. All sounds good.
So, you're gonna let me share, Phil?
Oh shit! Sorry, I meant to do that right off the bat.
No worries. I should just ask Sherry to make me co-host. That way, if one of the two of us is technically tied up, we could have a bailout.
It's like muscle memory. I should know just to do it.
We'll get this Zoom thing one of these days.
Right when it comes time to go back to all in person. So,
Right.
Which would
I agree.
Sort of okay to if that happens. So, okay, Joe, you should be able to share.
All right, you can see my mouse moving, right?
Yeah.
This one here that I'm highlighting.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit?
Yep, just tell me when to stop.
No, I'm like a 40 font guy. I'll tell you to go for forever. Whatever is comfortable. That looks okay. If
All
that's other people, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I need some context. I need to know what the budget constraint is, what the town manager is asking us to work with.
Well, we're still going through the list, but the original asterisked budget is about 2.1.
Okay.
But when the time comes, we may, depending on the rest of the department budgets, which are all being reviewed, and other state funding, that may change. But our target I'm shooting for is 2.1, keeping
Okay.
in mind that we have to deduct the leases from that. So really, it's effectively 1.7 something, almost 1.8 that really we have, because we have almost 400,000 in leases that come off that. So.
Okay. All right, thank
2.1,
you.
you know what I mean? So 2.1 is the bottom line, Frank, but then really effectively we only have about 1.8 somewhere in there to
Okay,
spend.
no, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Joe.
All right.
All right, guys.
That's okay. Hey, Shane.
Back.
So I think Catherine covered most of the library stuff, so I'll just kind of skip over that unless you guys want to talk that through again.
No, let's get through initial stuff we haven't talked about yet, please.
All right, so start at town hall. So the first one up, so this is all basically gonna come from our buildings division. Um, they're out there basically maintaining every building that we have, and they have some overlap with some of the things related to the schools. So you heard Tim's stuff. For those of you who haven't heard my spiel on this, and then there's other things related to the school that we'll actually be the ones advocating for. Um, it's a cooperative approach to this anyway. It just happens, we'll get into some of the HVAC stuff. We have two HVAC mechanics, Tim doesn't. So it makes sense for them to kind of be a little bit more of the lead on that. But we're all lockstep in that. So town hall, we're looking for a couple of things here. Windows is up again. This is basically to finish the building. On the third floor of the building, we have about 16 windows that have not been replaced. We've been kind of taking the approach year over year to hit floor by floor to work our way through the whole thing. So we think that this would finish that. Town hall has two sections of the building. So one of them is essentially parallel with Common Street right out in front. And then if you've been here before, there's like an L shape to it, which is directly above like where the town clerk in the building department is, which I guess would be the north side of the building. Last year, we replaced the rubber roofs. And this year, the request is in for the shingled roof, which is on, I guess you would call it the proper front. And that would be facing Common Street. That's the $50,000 right there. There was a picture of that in some of the backup that I had sent you. One of the things behind this, obviously, is age. The second thing is, if any of you have had the pleasure of listening to me talk about green communities or anything like that, with the exception of the schools, the biggest energy consumers in town are town hall, public safety, and the civic center. So what we would try to do with this is replace the roof and then come back after the fact and maybe try to piggyback that with some sort of a solar array on top of it. We have two now, both of them on our water department, and both of them have followed their installation of a 40-year architectural shingle roof. So in keeping with that practice, there's a little bit of the mindset here on top of age and wear and tear. Also in the packet that I had sent out for everybody to take a peek through, the foundation repointing. So the building's old and there's a whole bunch of gaps and different things filled in. So this $10,000 would cover that. The floor here at Town Hall is just painted concrete. Depending on the season, it sees a bunch of abuse and we end up painting it 2 or 3 different times a year. So very similar to the application that's going in now that was funded last year for the Civic Center. There's a request in there to see if at all possible if we could epoxy the floor down there and get rid of a little bit of the maintenance that's ongoing with that. That's the Reader's Digest at Town Hall. We could stop at Town Hall. I can keep going. You tell me what your pleasure is.
I would say just keep going, but what do others want to do? Do you want to stop by building or do you think just go through the list?
Well, I'll put it this way.
There's a lot on here, so
You're not going to
stop
throw me off if you interrupt me. So if you get a question, just fire away.
Okay, let's keep going. I think
Yeah.
we've got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So 5 Common Street, the building directly adjacent to Town Hall, siding and insulation. This is something that's come up a couple of times before. I'll be honest with you though, in my opinion, and what my recommendation will probably be to you all, where we don't know exactly like what the vision of the master plan is for that building. While the siding is not amazing, it is not in a condition where if we were to defer this for a year to figure out what the town's intent is to that building, it would hurt us. So this one here that I've highlighted, I would actually recommend to remove.
Okay.
I would say the same thing with the insulation. So the occupied spaces on the first floor where we do have a couple of municipal offices, You know, it's an old building, but there isn't anything that's so drafty there where it's really becoming a headache to us. This would be, you know, kind of a part and parcel project with the siding. If we stripped it, we would have covered it with, you know, 3/8 or, you know, 1/2 inch, whatever we could get on the outside to wrap it, and then fill some of the void spaces with there. But if we're not going to open the building like that, anything that we might have to do for weather sealing and stuff like that, we could carry operationally. So I would say to defer this one too.
Can you give me a Reader's Digest of the master plan and how it impinges upon this building?
We don't have one. So it used Board of Health used it. The Chamber of Commerce had it. I believe they've relocated into the Civic Center. So the first floor is occupied with some municipal offices. Board of Health is in there. And there may be some others. There's a second floor and a third floor to it that are currently vacant. A dentist used to have it, used to rent it, and that person is no longer there. So the question is, do you utilize the second and third floor? Who do you maybe put there? And then the other part to that too is if it's going to be a public facing office to get up to the second and third floor, there's no ADA access. So you're a little bit limited in that. So now outside of the third floor and then in the basement, which some of you saw last year, it's essentially storage. So, you know, depending on what, you know, the overall plan is, if we're going to occupy that fully, shift some municipal offices to it, maybe look at another tenancy or something like that. Then I would say invest, you know, more money into that. But for right now, you know, it's functioning, it's okay. I think, you know, under the constraints of the budget goal that you're trying to meet, it probably makes sense to put that towards something that's a little bit more active at this time.
Now, I understand we approved software last year that would allow you to map all certain things related to DPW and beyond. And those maps, are you going to keep a physical copy of those maps? And are they going to remain on the bottom basement?
So our goal with that is we are putting everything that we can get digitally, we're moving over to that. On top of some of the old flat files that DPW has, there's a lot of the building blueprints for different town-owned buildings. The building department has some storage in there. So if you remember those like chicken coop looking storage bins, each
Right.
municipal department has one or two or whatever. We happen to have some. PD has some things in there. It's a little bit of everything, but our goal is to obviously digitize that. That way, God forbid, if something ever happens to that, you know, it's backed up. So for right now, it could stay there. We're probably about 50% through that project. And, you know, that'll be something for the foreseeable future that we'll just keep adding into annually to take everything that we have on paper, or if we find stone tablet somewhere, we'll get that digitized. That way we can keep the record forever and it's accessible at, you know, a couple clicks of a mouse. Let's see, 11 Lafayette, same thing. So this is a building, it's in the back of Town Hall. Presently, right now, IT is housed in here. They're the only ones in there. Much like 5 Common Street, the siding isn't, you know, the greatest looking, a little faded, and it's been up for quite a while, but it's not in such a state where it's deteriorated to the point where it's going to cause underlying damage that's going to be a bigger problem down the road. So I would actually probably say that when we're going through and moving some things, I'd recommend cutting this one too.
Is that vinyl siding on that building?
It's either vinyl or fill. It might be aluminum, actually.
Oh, aluminum, yep.
It's one or the other.
Old.
It looks like clapboard. I don't know exactly what the material is. I can go out and knock on it and tell you when I leave.
Yeah.
I think there's aluminum on that building, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
So this is another building too. So if the town were to do anything different with it than what it is now, there is no ADA access to this. So it would involve some thinking and a bigger project to kind of transform it. So it works for now. It could work until next year, and then we could just continually monitor it and kind of see where we stand from there.
Sorry if you said this. Who's in there now?
IT.
Oh, okay.
So that was another one. I don't know. I wasn't here around the time. that had tenants in it. I think there might have been a psychiatrist office or something along those lines. And then either the town acquired it or we might have already owned it, and then chose not to be tenants there, and IT had moved in. They used to be in the basement at Town Hall, and then they slid over to the back of the parking lot. Let's see, related to the senior center, so our buildings group's asking for a floor machine, really because of the addition that's going on there. So if anybody's seen at the town council level, the second and third floor have been completely rehabbed. And a lot of the original wood flooring was able to be sanded down, stained, and brought back to life. So this was just something, if we could get that, would help them keep that looking as good as they can. Bottle fillers, right now we don't have anything, water fountain that's able to fill, think of like a Poland Spring bottle, or if you've ever been into Town Hall, they're right by the elevator. So that was to get a couple of those in there. So whatever floor a senior or somebody might be on, they might actually be able to utilize that.
So that 30 is for 2 bottle filler machines,
It actually will be, it should be for 4.
4 and associated plumbing.
Exactly. Yep.
For the floor machines, I assume those aren't restricted to the senior center, or would they be staying there?
No, so it would, that's where it would be primarily housed. But in the event that we needed to take it somewhere else, we're basically equipped to pack up and take it wherever we need to go. It would be something that would be most commonly used there, though.
Okay.
Joe, how many active floors are there in the senior center? Floors that are actually used, is it 3?
So depending on how you walk into the building, there's what I'm going to call the basement, which is generally accessed through the back. And then if you come through the front of the building, there's a second floor, and then there's 2 more floors on top of that. So there's a 3rd floor, and then a 4th floor. The 3rd and the 4th floor, when they did the building rehab, they had a budgetary issue at the time, so they didn't rehab those. But one of the things they did do was when they put the elevator in, they made sure the access goes from top to bottom. So when the town council assigned the DPW the ARPA funds for that, we basically took where they left off, and redid the walls, the windows, filled in all the holes we could see they had to open up to chase utilities and figure out what was going on. Upgrade the bathrooms and the door widths for ADA, all those things, and really turn it into like a usable space and kind of finish off what those before started. So it will be a complete top to bottom, be able to utilize in probably the next 30-45 days, as soon as, right now they're lowering the sprinkler heads and the smokes, and we're hoping to get in there sooner than later.
As far as senior clients go, they use 2 floors. So if there were 2 bottle fillers, that would be enough, right?
Correct.
You don't need
So
4 of them.
yeah, I think what their goal would be is to try to get one on each floor. I don't know exactly what the senior center has planned for the 3rd and 4th floor, but I do know that with that available to them, they can expand, some of their offerings. And then depending on what the town council decides to do, I could see the top floor ultimately becoming kind of like a community space, sort of on the idea of what you have at the Heritage Room at the Civic Center. It's a pretty big, I can just snap you some pictures for it and send it out before we meet next. It's a pretty big old school auditorium that just got left with high vaulted ceilings and beams, and it's pretty nice looking, especially now that all the wood's shined up. Big natural planked floors and everything. It's pretty cool. Definitely a throwback to people my age and a little older and what elementary school used to be. Where did I leave off here? Okay.
Tore down all my schools.
So this one here, the rubber roof at the senior center. So I'll be honest with you, this was noticed in some of the work they were doing. This is over, so the slate roof is the predominant roof that you can see from the street. And then on one of the flat sections of it, there's a rubber roof there. This is probably in D condition, I would say. It's not damaging anything underneath it, but we're on borrowed time. So as we get into it, this will be one of those ones we're going to try to hold on to this one as long as we can. We're hoping that maybe that could be included in the scope of what the ARPA project did. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So this number will be to replace that in whole. Next up, we have the Civic Center. So the basement window grates in the pictures they sent you, these are basically the ground contact level. There's metal grates around those windows, basically to keep them from getting impacted. Couldn't tell you how old they are, probably too old, but the mounting systems and everything are basically rusted and rotted away to the point where some of them are failing, and they're, you know, more or less junk. So this would be to remanufacture those. There's 16 of them that we would do. And the goal would be to get them on like a pin and a piano hinge, so that if we have to access the window to clean it or something like that, we can do that. We did something very similar on the inside of the gymnasium. So we're basically just going to do that, condense the size of what we built in there and put it on the outside of the building. They'll be powder coated in black, so they should be relatively weatherproof. And hopefully in my tenure, I don't have to ever revisit replacing those. Additionally, there's to these windows. This would be to start replacing the windows of the Civic Center. These would be wooden windows because it's historic. Pretty common size, but we'd start kind of room by room, floor by floor, and work through that. So we anticipate this would finish the first floor, the front half of the building. So the administrative offices, heritage room, and then if we could pick up anything else, we would try to pick up, but we would likely come back with a second phase to that on the top floors. And then last, to round out that building, you saw in the pictures they sent, the gym divider. So it looks like the right corner of that is just ripped. So they got some pricing to see about what it would take to replace that. And that is this.
I have a question on, how is the Civic Center heated? And would the windows, because they're historic, would they be energy efficient?
I don't know that completely. So in the bigger windows that we did at the senior center, the energy efficiency was basically minimal. But where these windows are a little bit more common and less custom, we should be able to pick up better energy efficiency out of that. I would think that they would at least qualify for Energy Star, probably double pane. I don't know if we can actually get a triple pane into that without having to, you know, got some of the stud work out of it or do some masonry. We'd have to open one up to see it, but these would basically be an in-kind wood. The building's heated, there's natural gas boiler that heats that building. All right, North Ave, so you saw the pictures. This is our DPW barn. This is just to replace two of the broken, rusty, rotted doors that are sitting there before they get too bad and fail on us completely.
Is that an actual price? It seems really low for two of those huge doors.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Okay.
So
we
wouldn't, I don't think we need to replace the motors or everything because they're relatively new. This would be just the skins for the doors. So hopefully
okay. This isn't the tracks and everything else. This is just the door, physically the doors itself.
The skins themselves. Yeah. As they fail, you know, some of them we've had to replace, and we're conscious to the condition of that building. We want to put as minimal into it as possible. You know, if not zero, while we finish out the evaluation of replacing it. Because it's a door that we go in and out of all the time, it was kind of an unfortunate, you know, we need to be able to access it, and it would look silly if we put up the gym divider from the Civic Center hanging out there. Let's see, Vinton Street. So Vinton Street, anybody familiar with Fernal Field? There is an old pumping station off of Right Field that is no longer used. It was replaced by the station at the corner of Farm and Water Street. So this has kind of become our unofficial storage workshop. Anything that we don't have space for that we need to do outside of the elements is kind of happening in here. One of the interesting things about that is behind it, it looks like there's an old foundation and footing. It used to be fenced in where there was more building there that's not. So that speaks to the rear addition piece. Essentially, it would be construction to get some more storage there. But as far as insulation, ceilings, the heat and everything like that, it'd just be amenities so we can work in there more often. Much like the things I talked to you about before, when we triage this, this is more of a nice to have than a must have. So when we get down to it, I'll actually say to defer these two. It would be great to be able to do it, but it doesn't make any sense looking at some of the more pressing things that are in this list. We talked about the Ewell School a little bit. So the boiler and the abatement. I showed you the pictures in that of the old pork chop boilers. So essentially all the white that's on those is asbestos installation. It's not HIT, it's not friable, it's not anything like that, but to move the boilers, we have to abate it. This is the last building that's heated by fuel oil, which is currently being rented by a tenant who is responsible for that. Same thing with the univents. So just to try to replace some of those, just based on age. The floor abatement, we've done a little bit of floor abatement work in here. So 9x9 asbestos tiles. We've had a couple instances where they've become friable. This instance in the picture I showed you, they're not friable yet, but it appears that they might be very soon. So this would be just to get that out of there. That way it doesn't cause any issues for us down the road. And then our building group also identified the roof is something that we probably want to look into replacing should we keep the building for the long term.
Sorry, just to clarify again, you said pliable or friable? What was that word?
Friable. So basically when the tile breaks up and it becomes, like little miniature pieces, that's when it's more likely to get into the air and become a problem.
Sure.
It's industry jargon, for lack of a better term. Let's see. So the Woodville School, the roof is something we're looking at. Original to the construction, so probably pushing 20, 22 years now. So at some point in time, that's going to be something that'll probably end up coming up. I don't think it's perfect, but I don't think it's at the point now where we're throwing tons of money at it strained. But certainly something in the next 2 to 3 years is probably something that we're going to want to do. The next line for the Woodville School. So in the Green Communities application that the town did in part of their energy audit and scoping, one of the things was included was to convert the Woodville School to heat pump instead of the boilers that are there. This $15,000 really is, there's nobody on our staff that is an expert in sizing those. We need to bring somebody in to help us if we're going to even entertain doing this, to scope it out for us and give us a spec that we can then turn around and bid it out to different vendors. Because right now, basically what we'd be looking for is to bring a vendor in and say, what can you do here? It'd be self-reliant on them. So we'd like to bring in a third party, help us work through it, design it, go through some of the, construction limitations, and then develop what essentially would be the scope for the construction bid documents. The Dolbear School, so 2 units here. There's a 60-ton RTU in the HVAC and a 50. Another one, age, probably original. I know they're original to when the building was rebuilt or rehabbed. So you're probably looking at like 25-year-old units here. When we get down to it, I'd say it's a coin flip as far as our staff is concerned. If we could do one, awesome. We can make the other one work, or vice versa.
What does the GC stand for again?
Green communities. So that's just a note for me. So this is also something, if we were to fund one now, there is the potential for me to go back when the Green Communities grant applications opens and get it funded through that. So that will be something that we'll have to look at and go for as well. Those are opening. There's a spring round that's coming up, and then there'll be a fall round. So we had the DEP and my business manager here and myself met with them to kind of talk about, some of the things that we had identified as what we might need to do. And then, are there any trends or things that are more likely to get approved than not? Basically we have a couple $100,000 to do things just like this. So if we scope out a variable drive pumping system or an RTU unit that's more energy efficient than what's up there and meets some of the energy criteria we have to do, there's a good chance that we're gonna be able to fund it through that. Same thing too, so like any of the units on the library don't end up, getting funded in entirety. That's another avenue we could start to use that grant and leverage that to pick some of these off. Anything we can get out of this only lets this list go longer, so we'll just keep firing darts at it until we're successful. Let's see, the Galvin, the water heater is being asked to be replaced. There's some replacement bottle fillers there too. That should cover you a couple of them, plus the plumbing that's involved with it. I don't know exactly where those go. I can ask Tim. The loading dock heater we've seen a few times. Essentially, that's the rear loading dock, something to keep the space warm. The Doyle School, there's a request for mini splits. Try to condition that space a little bit better. I think they included some pictures of, how they supplement the cooling there right now. We talked about the electrical service, modular building, the flies. The last thing in the building section, so we have a line for ADA improvements. We have a transition plan that we did up here, our engineers did, essentially identifying gaps and accessibility and things that might need to change. So it looked at door pulls, thresholds, sidewalks, you name it. So this is something that we're continually trying to do more of. So this will, be to start working through some of that. I did look at the playground at the back of the Dullbear School. The grades that are out there now, one side you cannot access under the assumption that was to get rubberized. One side you can't access without probably a pretty expensive walkway there because of the slope and the amount of construction I'll need to be able to bring that down to compatibility. It does look like from one side we can get into it and construct something there. So this would actually be a source to fund that. You're probably looking at $20,000 to get that access to the bottom of that playground on top of whatever it takes to level out the wood chips that they're trying to do.
So you're saying that 125 isn't enough?
Well, it might be enough. I haven't seen the quote for it. It might be enough to rubberize it. It's not enough to put the sidewalk in that you're gonna need to.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to cut a ramp into it, build a sidewalk down to it, and then we're gonna have to put in, I don't know, maybe like an 8x8 or a 10x10 pad. So when you get there, you have a place to kind of get your bearings together before you get out onto it. So we would have to construct that to connect the dots, because you'd essentially have one ADA compliant surface,
Yeah.
potentially another, but no man's land in between. So we would have to
Right.
bridge that.
Yep.
Let's see. So that's buildings. I don't know if we want to stop, keep going, whatever. we
I
wanna
got a
do.
quick question. Just ADA, we approved 50 grand last year for general ADA improvements. Has that money been spent? And do you see a need for an additional 50? Like there's a lot more on this list from
You know what I'll do? I'll
Yeah.
I should have done it last time. Sorry. I had a FEMA report dropped on me the other day that is due like yesterday. So I've been kind of scrambling. I'll send you what we did and what we have identified. This honestly needs to be something that we work into our operating budget. I'm just trying to get the window or the door open. We have the opportunity to be able to do it. And that hasn't presented itself quite yet. We've had a few things like that, like stormwater. That approach happened where the regulations changed and we used a warrant article to actually get us going. And then that allowed us some time to layer that in where it wasn't such a shock, to the overall budget number at town meeting. This is something that will eventually probably roll right into that, and we'll just be able to operate like that annually. Security type devices and things like that was another one that happened. We were placing, locks and different things and windows and doors and things like that all the time for one reason or another. So now that line exists. This would be the same thing, but I'll give you a much better picture of that and some of the follow-up after tonight. So do we want to go back into the
I was gonna say miscellaneous we haven't covered much.
okay, that's the easy one. Let's see. So Tim talked about this. I think we talked a little bit about the tables for rec in the beginning. This next one for us, sander and plow, this is basically to replace a broken snow plow for our front end loader that I don't think we can weld back together, and at least have it operable and be safe. Another floor machine, public safety. The snow machine is one that we funded in a couple of places. Those are essentially those, super heavy duty snow blowers that the building staff or the custodial staff would use to kind of clean out some of the walkways where putting a machine or a pickup truck on it at some of the buildings doesn't make sense. An aerial lift. This one, I'll be honest, is more of a nice to have than a must have. For our buildings folks, if we need one that bad, we'll just rent it. A highway division put in a line paint remover. Essentially, this is a sandblaster to take out pavement markings. This one we're going to be able to remove too. Thinking about it, the amount of times we actually want to use it is another one. It makes more sense to rent it than own it. There's a desire from my highway group to get a bigger road paver so they can start doing full lane widths. They do have one now. It's just built for sidewalks and small. This is one, though, I will say we'll have to defer because the price of these things is quite exorbitant, and 125 doesn't even get you close, which is a surprise. So we're gonna have to rethink that one as we move forward. But that'll be something that we'll be looking to do.
How much can I ask a question? How much road work does the town self-perform, or you don't do a lot because you don't have a piece of equipment like this? Like how much, what's the trade-off? Like what's the percentage would you say that you contract out opposed to doing in-house?
So new road construction?
I don't know, like this road paver, emulsify, like does this do emulsify? Like I don't know what a paver does besides pave. Like maybe it's multitask or I don't know.
So really
yeah.
what this would do is we have a milling machine for our Bobcat. It's a little slow, but it works. So we can actually mill the pavement down. What happens now is we can mill out a whole lane with Essex Street and Greenwood is a place we did. Tamworth Hill is another good example where it's not super wide and it's 300-400 feet long. We could actually start doing some of that. The only problem is our machine, the width of it when it goes out to about 6 feet. So if you're going 40 feet wide, that's 8 passes or whatever the math breaks down to. The highway group actually paved the intersection until the big show comes through town at Broadway and North Ave. And to do one lane of traffic, it took 3.5 pulls. If they had a bigger machine, they could essentially do it in one. So it would speed it up and let them go further. So the goal would be to then go to sections of town where you have like little pockets of potholes and things like that, or you get a dead end that's 300 feet long or something like that, and actually do some more of the work ourselves and not have to bring somebody else in to do that.
Okay.
So I think we'll get there. The timing right now, especially with the machine that's going to cost about $200,000, it makes sense to pause at this moment. But that's something that they're eager to do, and if they're eager to do it, I want to see them be successful. So I hope that answered you, Phil.
It does. Thanks.
Traffic sign printer. This is an interesting one. So way back in the day, we used to make all of our own traffic signs. And the way that it worked is you used to cut vinyl, you used to lay it out on a piece of aluminum. There was like a heating process to it. It was almost like a big quesadilla maker or panini sandwich machine. That's gone by the wayside because of reflectivity and things like that. So we got out of the business of doing that. Now, because of the way technology has improved, everything is computerized and everything's able to be done in-house again. You can actually just print stickers that are MUTC compliant. So the ask for the $40,000 is to be able to return to doing that. Why do we want to do that? Go and take a look at a street sign right now and it's faded, right? And we have to take it down and we have to replace it. There's still a piece of aluminum stock there that there's absolutely nothing wrong with. We need a new decal for it. So we could literally go from having to buy a new sign to just reprinting a sign. No parking sign gets faded. We would have the ability to print out, a 12 by 18 MUTCD compliant reflective current edition sign right in-house, zip it down on new aluminum and get it right back up. So we'd be constantly recycling the blanks, and it should drive our operational costs down. So that is to cover that one. The next line, so the backhoe rebuild, this is going to be part and parcel with, there's a request in the enterprises. We're going to buy a new backhoe for them. The picture of the backhoe that I sent you in the documents that we have is a 1995. We've run her hard and gotten every penny out of her. The plates have been canceled. That can't be on the road anymore because the carriage and the rollover protection system that actually protects the operator in the cab has rotted off the frame. And to repair it, you'd essentially have to do open heart surgery on a 30-plus-year-old machine. So what our goal would be is we would replace one of the frontline machines that our water department uses because those see pretty hard use. And we would take the one that's down there and completely rebuild it and transition it into our parks department. And they get another 20, 22 years out of it, no problem. Paint, valve body, piston repacks, essentially outside of replacing the computer in the thing and, doing a major motor overhaul, which isn't needed. Everything else that's a hose or different things like that are subject to the elements would get replaced on it. And then we'd move that over into parks, get rid of that old one. Not only do we have a nice hand-me-down for them to be able to use whoever need it, but it can actually serve as a competent backup. God forbid we'd ever need that. So that's some of the mindset there. In IT, the camera system upgrade. This is just a DPW thing. We have different cameras on different things or inside different pumping stations. They're old, low tech, and the client that we use for it is relatively unreliable. So this would be able to upgrade that for us. The two things it does, so not only paying attention to the property and what's happening there in our pumping stations. So anytime we have a well with a pit or anything where we have to put somebody down into, we want to get a camera on it. That way we can take a look at what's actually going on before we actually send somebody in there, to become the de facto canary. So that's something there. And then anything that we have on the outside of the building also, there would be an infrared thermometer on it too. So in the wintertime, we could flip it on, take a look at it, and I could see the road temperature in different parts of town. And that might dictate something different that I might do related to salt or plowing or things like that. So they'll accomplish a whole bunch of different things at once. I give you the quick 2-minute through the enterprises, and we can get into a little more detail next time, but similar to the tax. So we have some prior year leases and sewer. We bought a vac truck and a backhoe. That's that. We have some pumping station work that we're looking to do. This is going to be at the main sewer pumping station on Farm Street. One of the things that we're going to do to that is we've been looking at it to make that hardened, to really beef that up and set that thing up so that we have redundancy. We have, not only plan A, we have plan B and C. God forbid we run into an issue there. So that's some work related to that. Our folks there are looking for a pavement saw. So similar to the paving, our water guys have been out and they're putting in more water main now. So last summer, they were able to pick off a couple 100 feet in-house rather than having to bring somebody in to do it. The saw that they have is essentially a handheld pavement saw that they're running on a little device made for that. This would be just to beef that up for them so they have the right tool for the job. They can go those couple 100 feet without killing themselves with the blades. And then annually we do a system improvement line. This is essentially as we're doing our investigation through video inside the sewer mains, and we find slip joints or things that need to be opened and excavated. We have a pocket of money to be able to do that should we need it. Other than that, this would be to do things like we find out mid-year that we have a manhole we weren't planning for to replace. There's a mechanism to fund that. Water, same thing, prior year leases. I mentioned we're looking to replace the second backhoe this year. The pavement saw, hydrants. So we stock typically just to have in stock. We have about 6 or 8 hydrants ready to go. As we're paving streets, we're replacing them. But then, if one gets hit or something like that and it's old, we've been getting all new stuff out on the road. So this would be to do that. This will cover 8 hydrants and all the appurtenances we need for that. And then very similar to sewer system improvements is, we find out that a gate's broken, there's a nut missing, we have a valve or something in a pumping station go down. This is just a mechanism for us to fund things that are a little bit above and beyond what our operating will, the safety net, should you think. And that's about that.
So similar to the pavement saw, I guess, right? Like, so if the sewer or the water, if there's a break, I
Yep.
don't want to jinx anything, but like something happens, uh, who pays for that repair? Is it DPW, or is it one of these divisions that pay to open up the road, fix the pipe, and then to repave the road where the repair took place?
We would do it all in-house. So if you had, believe it or not, after the earthquake that happened, we had a ring of probably like 5 or 6 water breaks that happened right after that. It
Yeah.
could have been coincidence. It could not have. I have no idea. But all of those, it's like a 911 call for us. We get called, we
Right.
shut it down, we fix it, and then after everything has a chance to dry up, we budget for it anyway. So the water department will go back, fix that, pave that, get it all set.
So I guess is there an argument to be made to put the road paver in these divisions instead of the general capital tax levy?
You could. I haven't even gotten to the point of thinking that. Honestly, I thought the machine was going to be about $125,000 based off some of the conversations I had.
Yeah.
But it's pushing 2. So I'd want to do a little bit more due diligence on that. But you could technically
Just
split it.
because two might be a good deal a year from now when you think about, taxes and then just general price increases for all this stuff. I wonder if, two's bad, but what's next year going to bring? And if there's an argument, I know these levies are a little different on how they, in terms of they don't affect us, even though we approve it. But
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
it all affects us in some way,
It
shape,
would
or
allow
form,
you to
right?
get it and just get it in another way, I guess. But
Yeah,
I have 2 questions.
true.
The first one is you have an abbreviation LP
Yep.
by the lift station in sewer. What does that mean?
That's a typo. That was just a carryover from another line. Anywhere
Okay.
where you see LP, like this one right here, actually should say that. The goal lease purchase. So to spread the cost out on this a little bit, we're going to finance it through the dealer for 3 years. So the machine will cost us $190,000, but the payment will be $65,000 a year for 3 years.
The second question deals with the hydrants and the water division. Now, with all the new development going on in this town, do you have to add hydrants near these developments where, buildings didn't exist before? Or is
No,
that-
so generally to meet NFPA, which is the fire protection, you want a hydrant about the goal really is 500 feet, but I think the regulation is more like 8. So I think the hose bed that they carry is 800 feet of hose. But if you're putting in a subdivision or something like that, for us to permit it and sign off on it, you have to have a hydrant in it that is supplied by the developer. So 200 corner Powit, any hydrants that needed to be in there, they had to buy. They had to upgrade the water main. They had to do all that. These would be something like if you were driving down Main Street, and we needed to replace a hydrant downtown, or if we were paving a street and we had an old hydrant at the end of a dead end, we would want to replace that anyway. Different things like that. If a car hit it, we need to have the hydrant in stock. If a car hits a hydrant, we can't repair it. We need to dig it and fix it. We'll do that. But then the time that it takes to chase the insurance company to get compensated for it is always lagging in arrear. So this just gives us stock. We have it. It's ready to go. Occasionally, every once in a while, the fire department might make a suggestion of where they think they need a new one. We'll go do it. For water quality purposes, we could add them in. It all depends. There's a couple of different reasons why, but
And how
generally,
many are you asking for?
this should cover about 6 and all the pipe work that you need with it.
do the blue highlights mean anything?
This is a leftover from last time. It just
Yeah,
means
okay. I don't know if there was, And I know with fleet, we had asked if you could maybe prioritize some of those requests. Were you able to do that?
I'm gonna take some away, actually.
You gonna take some fleet requests away?
Yeah, you want to get into it, or you want to finish talking buildings?
It's a cut.
Yeah, I mean,
We have a little long road. Yeah. I don't know, guys. Do you have any questions? I don't want to jump
do
too
we,
much ahead, but yeah.
because a sewer division, water division, they use their own revenues to finance capital projects. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
100% correct. This is
Okay.
this is funded from the rates, not the tax levy.
All right,
Okay, so in other words, we don't, as the history been is, we pretty much approve whatever is requested.
we're not
Generally,
given budgets, correct? Oh, sorry, Joe.
no. So this is something, so I'll look at all of these appropriations would be funding out of retained earnings there, which is basically the free cash equivalent to each enterprise. So depending on the health of that fund, kind of is the pace card of what we're doing for capital and what we're not. So I'll look at that. I'll figure out, what we have. That's why these are always the last ones that I speak to, because I wait till I see 3 billing cycles, 3 collections in to know like, okay, I'm going to hit my target for the year. I don't have some reason why consumption's down and revenue's off. I can make my decision from there. So this is something that gets funded out of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't come out of our budget that we talked about a little earlier to either. So it's
No.
separate of all that. So, what do we want to go over fleet and then we can start going over, or do we want to focus on everything he just reviewed? What do people prefer? I would say go to fleet just to go through it and see what he's prioritizing, and then maybe we can just start going through the list we just went over and talk about maybe some removals or maybes or keeps.
Yeah, I
Looks
think
good to me.
Okay.
Yep, fleet, do the fleet.
All right. So we spent a little bit of time talking about these first two. I don't know if I explained it too awesome last time, but one of the reasons why you see 2 of these big pieces, and I generally will not want that scenario to happen. We're also between age and the one machine that we moved on from last time going down this year. We also have a short window before there's another major emissions change that may or may not happen to us. So Governor Baker signed an emissions change, which is now coming to a head where Massachusetts will adopt essentially a pilot that California put in place. So it's about to get super strict. Nobody's running those motors or anything like that. So we don't want to be the first ones to run through it and work all the bugs out for everybody else. That's kind of the mindset behind it. I was on the phone all day long today. And should 1 or 2 of these still be in contention, if this was something that we chose to finance versus purchase outright, you'd take this $640,000 number, and the payment for 2 of them over 5 years would drop to 120. So
120 for both?
yeah,
Or yeah, and then
it's
can you pull up
50.
the lease? Do you want to open that second tab to show, I don't know if everyone poked around on this tab to show how the leases are panning out over the next few years?
Yeah, so you would essentially add, sorry. It's about the extent of my Excel knowledge. So this is this year, 372. We have some things falling off. So if those were to add in next year, you'd be looking at 363, 258, 208, 120, and so forth. And this is the bottom is just the breakdown of the water ones.
Yeah, our leases have really gone up. Like when, the lease schedules used to be in the hundreds. 21 FY 21, 22, we were in the, 160, 120. This year, this 372 is a really big year. I'd be hesitant to use that as our our goal for future years. So it's tough to add that 120 because that's really eating up our capital budget. You know, looking out 2 years, you see that huge drop. That gives us almost 200 extra $1,000 to spend in capital, but it also is a mechanism to get these expensive vehicles too. So worth discussion. So you need two. You 100% those two you need you. There's not one like the older one wouldn't be the priority. If
Actually, the newer, believe it or not, the newer one's
the
the
newer
priority.
one is the priority,
Then the older one would just start to age out.
right?
I think I mentioned the first time. So these are probably from this time you sign the PO to you receive them is about 2 years.
Right.
So, you know, I'd be 2 years further removed down the road.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, at some point in time, the way that fleet's going related to these, they're probably going to enter warrant article territory. And similar to, you know, what Deputy Chief Purcell said, I could see a scenario down the road where they end up like a fire truck, like every so many years, you know, you just have a warrant article for X amount of these things, and it just goes on a cycle. They hadn't been, but like everything else between materials and labor, and then the games that the markets play, you know, we're in the situation that we're in.
Yeah. Is there anything in the fleet section you could remove tonight
Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that.
without discussion? Like, well, which ones out of these lists would you say we could remove?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes next to me. This one's gone. This one's gone.
Wait, should we leave them in and just make them red, or are we just removing them entirely?
Well,
No,
if he
I
doesn't
would
want,
just,
if he doesn't want them, that's more I was asking, I guess. If
I'd
he
remove
thought
them
that,
in their entirety.
but we
Okay.
can do whatever people want. I sometimes things just get removed because the requests change or there's more of a priority over one of the other requests. So that was more asking, I guess, under that reason.
Yeah,
No,
no,
that
that's
works.
fine.
Again, it's my first year doing it, so whatever works best for everyone works for me.
We can still make it red though.
I would do whatever you want. The gaping hole is there. I would take those two out for now. By next time, this one here and this one here. I actually sent our fleet supervisor to another dealer this afternoon to see if he could go there in person and shake some more money out of them. So we'll probably have definitely a price change on that. If not, one drop off and the other one
On which
carry.
two? Sorry, which two did you type that?
The big ones.
The 2,000, the 1.5, the 2 1.5 tons. Okay.
Yeah. So these are subject to change between now and the next time we meet. And then whatever we want to do with the first two for now. And then I could keep going with some of the things I recommend to cut out.
Keep on.
unless-
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Joe,
Oh,
excuse
sorry.
me, excuse me, I may have missed the logic, for the, for buying both of those, dumpster and, dump and plow sanders, at this time. Is there a chance that we could defer one?
Potentially. I mean, depending on how it works, we can do anything. Like I said, I don't want to have to talk to you about doing two of them at all.
Right, yeah, no, I understand. Okay,
The
Wait.
state of the world out now, I don't know what's going to change, and
sure.
is it going to be
Oh.
even worse or not?
Yeah, we'll definitely pay more, for whatever one we defer, but, we'll be
So-
paying it, in another year.
The other question I'm going to have too, so right now that emissions change that I was telling you about, there's an exemption for snowplow equipment. I don't know how long that's going to last. I do know that if we were to buy, like, we're going to have a problem when we go to buy our bucket truck for our tree department, because unless the dealer sells X amount of electric vehicles, they can't sell it to us. So I know a community close to us just got told no from a dealer. They were looking to buy a bucket truck very similar to ours. And because they haven't met their quota on some of the EV stuff in the heavy duty world, their response was basically get in line, but I can't sell it to you right now. So when
Yeah,
you
for the
get that big,
And why is that? Why can't they sell it to you?
there's no exemption. So there's no exemption for a bucket truck right now for a forestry division. And they need to meet a certain minimum amount of sales for EV heavy duty that they have not met. Until they do so, they can't sell it to us. So the other thing you're finding with that is a lot of contractors are now going up into New Hampshire. I was with one this morning that started a brick and mortar up there because they can't buy anything as far as a triaxle or a tractor right now. So they moved their business, out of a community on the ocean on the North Shore up there, and the rules are different, and they can have a little bit more freedom to operate. So there's a little bit of an unknown with that. I don't know exactly what will happen, what won't happen, but we're probably end up being subject to all of it, just like everybody else.
Did we buy from New Hampshire?
No.
All right.
No.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well,
these
let me
these are the
rephrase that.
unforeseen consequences of certain policies, you know?
Let me rephrase that. We can buy from New Hampshire. Like if there's a dealer up there, we could. My understanding of it is it would be frowned upon legally for us to do so, and we would have trouble registering that piece of
Right.
apparatus.
Yeah, they would appreciate your creativity trying to get around it, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd end up with a very expensive parking lot feature.
Yeah, one option is to buy a dump with plow and lease one too. Like, yeah, right. Like you don't need to lease both of them, right?
No, I mean, really, that's just been an avenue. I can't take credit for creating that or suggesting that way back in the day. I just kind of picked up on that. Like you had mentioned, it's just a way to see if you can spread the dollars out and, the out years, look like they're, absorbable, to be able to do a little bit more. Like uncommonly, last year we leased the IT stuff through it because that was a
Right.
big ask. So that took a $400,000 project and spread it out to a series of smaller payments.
So accounting wise, I don't know the answer, so I'm asking. You approve 320,000 and put the purchase order for one of these in, but you don't get it until 2027. Does the lease not start till you pick it up? So in terms of like figuring out when the lease payments start, does it start FY26 or does it start when you're actually in possession of the vehicle?
So the payments would start. So there's like an intermediary party. So we have an at delivery payment, which is whenever it comes in, and then a series of annuals. So we would pay the creditor, and then they would make payment to the dealer when that shows up.
Yeah, because I feel like we would carry that in the lease schedule starting next year, FY26.
Yep.
But you may not actually have the vehicle in hand until FY27.
Potentially.
But they're making you pay for it before they even give it to you. Like if I order a vehicle today, I put a deposit down, but then I don't pay for the vehicle until it reaches the dealership, right? Like, so I guess it sounds different when it comes to this kind of stuff that you're paying for something that they're going to give to you at some point in time.
Well, we haven't paid for it, so we won't. The town, like the cameras is a good example. You don't pay for it until you authorize it as being received, and the transaction is complete. But you would begin to pay the creditor back based on the schedule that you decide to go on.
Okay.
And like any other loan, they base it off of whatever their math is based on whatever the prime rate is.
Right.
Plus or minus whatever their business model is, and then if you push it out, I think it becomes more speculative. And you end up probably paying more of an interest because it's a little bit more volatile.
Right.
Creditors.
Crapshoot of what the interest rate's going to be.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't pay anything. Municipal, state, you don't pay anything until service is rendered. You can't prospectively pay for anything. So if we're making a payment in 26 related to the vehicle, it's related then to paying whatever this creditor who's putting it up front for the bit, like we're paying them for the service that they provided us. We're not paying for
Correct.
vehicle.
The vehicle
Like that's
itself.
the
Yeah. Right.
um Yeah, no,
I can-
we can't give a dealership money and then wait for a car to show up. They only get our money if we get the car first. Like that's how the law is written.
I wouldn't be sitting here with you next year if that was the case. And I actually got into a uncharacteristically a little bit of a strong disagreement with a dealer in the Metro Boston area on that exact reason. I just basically refused to send him anything because I didn't have what I asked for.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
Okay.
Joe, I have a question on the leasing concept, because I'm more in favor of leasing both of them, and just absorbing the 120 and being done with it. I do have a concern about, the sense of in 10 to 15 years, then they'll both be up again because we bought them at the same time.
mhm.
But the if it's 120,000 across 5 years, that's a $600,000 total. But if we bought them both outright right now, that's 640,000. So I don't understand how we save 40,000 spreading out a lease.
Great
Like the
question.
math doesn't make sense to me.
So this 320 is for a new truck, new sander, new, all brand new. The lease number is based off of, since we left last time and today, both of the snowplows are in good enough shape to get reused, and both of the sanders on the back of the truck are in good enough shape to get reused. So that's a significant amount of money right there that you save about $40,000 a truck just in that. So we take the old ones and when they go out to pasture, the sander and the snowplow would stay, and that would actually last 2 vehicles.
Okay, so we're really just buying 2 dump trucks because the accoutrement we're keeping. So if we wanted to buy outright, we're not talking about 640,000. We're talking about 560, right? Take 40,000 off of each of them.
Tell you in 2 seconds. Yeah, I mean, plus or minus a little bit, but yeah, you're right on. Yep. Good catch.
Those are 280 each. All right.
Did we adjust
Um,
those prices then or no?
Whatever you folks want to do.
Well, what would the lease, so what are we saying the lease would be? So the 320 on each of those would turn into what?
If it's
Uh,
40,000 less, it'd be 280, right?
Call it 60, just so I don't under promise that. So the combined payment together
Keep
would
the
be
60 and then add the LP next to it so we know what that is. And so we think that's the high end.
I'll know for sure. I was on the phone with them today.
Okay.
And I'll know for sure before the next time we talk. So I didn't want to be presumptuous and start going down that road before we talked about it. So I know we've been kind of talking about fleet, but I'll have some updates with this. Do you want to get into buildings and I'll pull some more stuff away, try to break the ice for you a little bit there?
Yeah, if there's anything that you think would be, or you would recommend we do remove, it would help, it would help.
I will. So I'm not trying to speak for you, but I'm also not trying to waste your time. So,
No, your input is golden on all this, so.
I agree.
we'll go building by building. So Vinton Street here, pull it all.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. And then the siding projects that we talked about. So 11 Lafayette Street, I think we're fine waiting there.
Yeah.
And I think for 5 Common Street on the siding and the insulation, we're fine waiting here.
Yep.
Do you make these recommendations or is it someone else?
What do you mean?
Like for the siding, like you, for the siding for Common Street or for 11 Lafayette, do you say, as the process begins, we should take a look, we need the siding? Are you providing us with that estimate or someone else, like the occupant of the building?
No, so we're responsible for the maintenance of the building. So what ends up happening is I have a very similar conversation with our building staff and our fleet staff, just like we do here,
Mhm.
continually throughout the year, right? Give me the status of what we got out there, any things coming down the road that are going to be, like barriers in front of us to be productive and whatnot. And then as we're out and about talking to different people, doing different things, you know, anybody in any building can suggest something to us, can ask something to us. These two happen to be from us. We noticed it, so we're bringing it up to you. But there are other things that someone who's in an office might say, "Hey, I noticed this about the building. I think this could be a place where we could put some improvement in, and we'll take that and advocate for that anytime." Same thing with vehicles. Same thing with anything.
Joe, on the senior center, the bottle fillers, just to get back to that.
Yep.
Could I suggest that we give them 2 instead of 4? Being a senior, I would support that.
So you want to see this halved? So 50.
Yeah.
The only question I have, Dan, about that is or to Joe, if we have to install all new, because I assume there's not already plumbing for these, so you're going to have to run a water line from some source, let's say in the basement, all the way up to the 4 floors to service these fillers. So
Oh,
if we do, I'm guessing, right? Like there's not already, or is there existing fillers in these and we're just replacing the actual filler device?
I thought
No,
they ran off of a
So
sprinkler.
there isn't an actual
Bubble.
filler, but when we look at this fill, like I'll give you like the one at town halls next to the elevator.
Right.
It's not there because it's next to the elevator. It's there because there's a plumbing chase with water and drain right behind it. So we're not going to rip the walls over. They put one of these things in. We're going to find wherever the utility chase might be. And if it makes sense to put it in that area, tap into that. That was one of the struggles we had with one a few years ago with the Greenwood School. Like we had utilities in one section. They were thinking about putting one in another. It didn't make sense because you would have to carry it across over
Right.
through everything in the building. So these would go probably somewhere adjacent or on the opposite side of a wall to some of the bathrooms that we have in there.
Okay.
Um,
So there's some flexibility some flexibility depending on where the piping is that, giving them half this year would help, and then you could still pick the locations. You're not, I'm just thinking if it was all in a stack of things and you're already in there, whether it made sense to not do them all, but it sounds like it sounds like it's, every floor may be different.
and this is one too. So what they would end up doing is having a conversation with Karen Burke, who's the maestro down there every day.
Yep.
To figure out like what are her needs based on the people that go there and take the services that they provide, and then we'll match that to kind of where we think we can land the utilities and make it as minimally disruptive as we can. Sometimes the answer is this doesn't work because to be able to do it doesn't make practical sense. Sometimes it's a slam dunk because it's literally right behind the wall on a 4-inch hole socket and make it really easy.
Okay, that's 15,000.
Yeah, I'd be okay halving it if we don't have the,
Moving on.
So how many does that provide for 2?
At least 2.
Two.
Yep. Whatever else it takes to install it. They're deceptively expensive.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that, but
For the floor machine, while we're on the senior center, so the public safety building's looking for a floor machine, senior center is looking for a floor machine. Is there not a town-owned floor machine that could be used in the buildings?
Good question.
Is it typical that you would have a floor machine per building in a town?
I don't know. I've only worked here. My recommendation was like, don't tell anybody, but my recommendation was going to be to zero those out though.
I was going to recommend that, or look into and somehow in someone's overall budget, just buying a floor machine that could be shared.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
And my quick question while you're down there, why is the sander plow DPW in miscellaneous and not up in fleet? What's the difference between fleet and then like that sander and plow?
it wasn't attached to a vehicle, really.
Oh,
It's a
that's just
vehicle.
that's actually
Oh,
the
this is-
sander and the plow. That's not a truck with the sander and plow. Got it.
No, this is actually just parts that broke on us,
Okay.
and just to replace them for one of our loaders and to get a little drop-in sander so we have a backup.
Okay.
While I'm in here, just for the moment, I said that the paver made sense to defer, the line paint remover, the aerial lift machine.
You can lease that, you said, right?
I think for the amount of times that we need it, if you have to rent it, that's not
I mean,
bad.
rent it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the need for it. If we had a really light list and it was something that we could acquire and have, it'd be great. But that's not the case this year. So where it's more of a nice to have versus a must have, it makes sense to just defer it.
I mean,
What-
another piece I saw too, and I don't know if these are interchangeable or not, but I know we have like backhoe rebuild, and then we have a backhoe for the cemetery, right? And then are those interchangeable or like they're kind of exclusive to each area?
No, so the cemetery one, I think I mentioned last time, we need a little bit more time to scope that out. One of the challenges is with that is the weight of the machine has to be a certain range so that it doesn't crush what's underneath it. There's a limited amount of people that are using, things like that. To buy a backhoe for the street's easy. I could go to any construction company or use our own experience and make that happen. Those machines are way too big for down there. We need a little bit more time. Our machine's getting up there, but it's not to the point where it's so bad where we're going to be in trouble.
So could we take?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Shane.
No, I was just saying, do you think we could take that off too, or?
So that one's gone. So
Oh, we did. Okay, gotcha. All right.
I did
my
I
bad.
did that one last time. So
You did? Okay.
that one's been removed.
Great.
And then the other one that we were talking about is essentially when our water and sewer folks upgrade theirs, their machine's in decent shape. It just needs an overhaul.
Okay.
So if we do that, then we could take that one that I sent out the picture of, which right now it's scrap. So that town council will declare that surplus and we're just gonna have to get rid of it. We can remove that and, for relatively short money, comparatively speaking, to buying a brand new machine for them, they're perfectly content and fine with a hand-me-down that's, had all the bushings and lines replaced into it so it's safe and it doesn't leak. And then, they're not digging water main with it in the middle of January all the time, although they certainly could if they needed to. So the life expectancy, we can extend that for, not even jokingly, probably 15 to 20 years.
Nice. Nope, that's great.
You figure the other one's a 95, so they got 30 years out of that machine. That machine started as a highway machine, so way back when I was down there, that was what we used to dig the street with and do drain work and sidewalks and all that. And then at one point, highway got a new machine that got cycled into them. We didn't do any rebuild or anything to it at that point. We just gave it to them how it existed. It doesn't make sense for them to need a full new huge machine when we got one right there that's a rehab project away from being meant for them.
So equipment 89 and equipment 31 that are yellow.
Yep.
Because right now those DPW, it's almost 750,000, which is down from the original. It was like 1.5, I think, was the original fleet for DPW. So you've definitely, the leases helped, but do we think either of those vehicles are something that could be deferred to next year in terms of your overall fleet, or can you remind us if any of those are like dead?
No, you could probably defer one, much like we talked about with the bigger ones. We spent most of the day today trying to figure out, can we change how these things may be set up, still get the same functionality out of it, yet trim the price from it. A welder was underneath them looking at some of the snowplow connection things, and anything that we can reuse, we're probably going to do that. So those will look dramatically different between the time that we talk next. I just wasn't prepared enough to get to that point today with
Yep.
everything else that was going on.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
You're
whether
right.
like the 15's in worse shape than the 17, but as we learned with the dumps, that's not necessary. Age doesn't necessarily equate to worse condition.
I would think that the 15 probably is. The
Yeah.
17 is tough because it's a Chrysler product. So anything that we've had go on it that's required it to be sent out, nobody there's a hesitancy to touch that because they're not equipped for it. They're dealing with Jeeps and different small things like that, not these big honking DPW trucks that we have, right? Um, so that's in there for that, but they're gonna make a judgment call on that and give me something better to come back to you with next time. So
I'll tell you,
apologize for the
it's
poor
okay, Joe.
answer, but it'll change.
No, that makes sense. And I'm gonna tell you, I have a friend that sells Fords for a living, and they're like begging people to take the Lightnings off the electric Ford F1. I think those are 1.5 tons. No one there's some issues with range and battery on them. So when you're plowing out a 24-hour storm, but just if you're looking for deals and if you're looking for an EV to try out, you may want to poke your head into a Ford dealership and see what they're selling because they're like giving those things away.
So we looked into that, not to get off a
Yeah.
off topic or anything like that. The one thing I wasn't able to get a concrete answer on, payload capacity, and then
Yeah.
runtime
Exactly.
under conditions. If they
Right.
want to give me one, I'll certainly try the heck out of it and tell them what I think needs to get improved.
Right. And then give it back. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
The other thing too that's a consideration for us in that, and it doesn't necessarily always come out all the time, is if we get bad rain and a catch basin or something's flooded and we have to drive through it. I don't know how deep those things can go, but I mean, there's been times that I could tell you we've been up to the doors on different streets in town for one reason or another. So where the battery sits, does that work? I don't know. But
They're a
what
little
we,
bit of a mess. I was just offhanded comment that if you're
yeah, no,
if you're desperate and you like dealing with car dealers, that would be an easy one to
there's certainly a fit for it. And when the vehicle pops up on the depreciation schedule that matches the ability to slide one of those in,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely be there. Just
Yeah.
not at this moment.
Right.
Not for or against, or we're totally neutral in the whole thing.
Yeah. What about going through this list? We've just gone through fleet. Maybe just going from here and going, and maybe we can make some yellows or reds or greens. See if there's any easy
Could we back up just?
quotation mark ones that we as a group could agree on. Anything in the fleet? Like, are we good? Would we
Yep.
be okay with the 2 leases up front to make those green?
Yes.
Do we have a sense of where we're at right now?
Pardon me?
Do we have a sense of like kind of where we're at with?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
think we're
halfway
a
there.
million and a half off, I think.
4,000,003.
Yeah, I've been
What
somewhere
are we?
4,000,003.
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, and we're at 2.1. So we still got a good 2.2, 2.3 million to
I
try.
have us at 1.9 million to cut.
Yeah. I have a couple notes on the side that I've probably made changes we haven't done as a group. So my number I think is more Phil Renzi thoughts than where we actually are. So this sheet is the one. So how do we feel about the 2 leases?
I would drop one of them. I would defer it for 1 year.
I think in my perfect world, without obviously knowing where we're going to end up, I kind of like the idea of leasing one and buying one. That might be a huge constraint, though. I don't know.
It's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
It's going to be tight with all the other requests, I think. We could certainly make them yellow for now if they're not green or red or we don't know, and we can kind of get through the bigger list and come back to this. These are these are some of the line items we'll have to come back to at our later meetings, and then right, it's the trading off and how much money. Like if we don't have 320, that's an easy, so
Right.
that's probably what I would recommend at this point.
Let me look.
Go ahead.
Let me hope. We'll walk through the building, and then I think we'll start to get.
Oh, all right. I was just going to suggest let's knock down the police cars to 2. he does it every year. He wants 3. And I know we didn't do it last year, but, everybody's got to tighten up a little bit. So that's $80,000.
Why don't we just move off the cars?
Okay.
Why don't we talk about things that we absolutely are like, no go, get rid of.
Okay,
That way we know exactly what we're really playing with.
Yeah.
okay.
Agreed.
What's the rationale for not funding the boiler replacement at the library?
Their preference was the chiller. She said if I get
Okay,
anything,
now I recall.
make it the
Correct.
chiller. And then we talked about the RTU. So that's why those two were green and
Yeah.
everything else was blank.
Now I remember. Thank you.
We didn't talk about the carpet flooring or the plumbing in the library though.
I cut those in half in my own notes because I think she was like, I could kind of do it, but like it'd be really hard to make it all the way there. So I cut in half and then put them in yellow. But that's me personally.
But I mean, she said she needs carpeting in more than one room.
This was the further, yeah, and in another one of the rooms. I think the upper rooms, I
Yeah.
believe she
I
said.
thought the
community
lecture
room,
hall was
the
one, wasn't
lecture
it?
hall.
Mm.
The lecture hall is fairly sizable, so that could be all in there.
I had that at 20,000, but now it's showing 30,000. Joe, did that get changed? Did I miss that change somewhere?
Plumbing is 30,000.
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry. Plumbing's 30. I'm
Yeah,
looking at the wrong
plumbing's
line.
30.
Yeah.
Sorry. I do have my glasses on too.
I'm not messing with you, I promise.
No, I'm just everything was backwards. So, and plumbing is just miscellaneous plumbing repairs, or do they have a major like stack or riser project you know about?
The plumbing was the bathroom upgrades.
That's right. Like at 150 and 80 approved, 230, I would almost say that the rest gets
Yeah,
zero.
that they're tapped out.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
So do we want to show those at that then?
I think for now we have to start contemplating how much each of these departments is getting.
Mhm.
All right. I would say for the next one, let's pause on the windows for town hall. Pause on the foundation.
Did you have leaks? I have a question on the foundation actually. Is there active leaks? Because that would make me want to get that done because that could become exponential in terms of damage if left unchecked, or is it just maintenance? Is it below grade or above grade?
Above. Some of the pictures in there should highlight it, like
I saw some of the
the
big
concrete
stones. Yeah,
panel and stuff like that.
right.
I could have somebody else just do that. That's a good Friday afternoon when no one's at town hall project.
Yeah.
And even some of the pointing too, to go around and fill the gaps and things like that, I think we can do. I don't think we have like a waterfall inside. If we had a week of rain, I'm sure there's wet spots and little things like that. But I'll put it this way, we would know about it because most of the town hall in the basement is occupied by our building staff. They don't really have a place to go, so they fit in every like nook and cranny down there.
Yeah.
So if that was something that was like what the Civic Center was last year, the tone would be a little bit different talking about that at this point. It's just something that we're gonna end up having to do. So
Yeah, it just needs to happen, and that's the biggest thing. Like masonry just has to be repaired, especially in New England with ice, and you start getting ice in these cracks, and just blows these things up. And so, it's not a lot of money for repair, but at the same time, if you think because it's not a lot of money, you could fund it in another way and get it done, then I would say remove it from this list.
I'm not having massive second thoughts there.
Yeah.
So, like I said, in a perfect world, it gets funded and it goes, but you have an objective to get to. So if that has to be sacrificed to meet that, then it is what it is.
Does the basement floor epoxy offer any waterproofing? Because you've got documents still in the basement, as you say.
It probably does, not to the point where Really what it would do is just save a bunch of labor and
Okay,
keep the thing up.
okay. Thank you.
Again, more of a nice to have is probably unfair because I'm sure there's legitimate reasons behind the ask and the request and things like that. But when you triage it against everything else, it falls into more of the nice to have than the must have, unfortunately. Or fortunately, depending on what side you're on.
Right. What's next?
So the senior center, so the Bardo fillers. I would probably ask if we could keep the roof just because of the condition that this thing's in.
That's over the front entrance, right? The only flat roof I think is over the front entrance, right?
There's a piece on the front, and then I think to the right-hand side, over where like the stairwell comes out, there's a small piece there, but it's basically where like with the front, behind the parapet.
Behind the parapet, right? Yeah.
Civic Center set up very similar out front. Pitched roof up top, and then there's a smaller one over the entryway. And that would essentially finish this building off.
Yeah, with
More
all
or
the
less.
other work that was done, like not to do the roof wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. But but what do people think?
I would do it.
Yeah. It sounds good to me too. I mean, again, I wasn't here last year, but if everything else is done,
Generally speaking, if it says roof, I want to get it done. The roof damage, roof aging, roof failing, that just like it screams nightmare to me.
Yeah.
You're
So
not wrong, Sam.
It's
Okay.
Next building, Civic Center. So, for what it's worth, my opinion here, just because of where the window grates are, and a few of them actually cannot be lagged back onto the building. If we're going to keep anything there, I would keep that. The gym divider. So the interesting thing with this, the first thing I thought of when I saw the picture of it, if the fabric is torn, can an awning company sew this?
Just sew it. Exactly. Like
Blanchard obviously is not right across the street anymore, so we need a little bit more time to figure that out. But I think there's
there's
a reduced involvement in that if you could just sew it. I think I'd
this
like to explore that, and I think for that reason, I would say to defer.
yeah, like this is where the picture is worth 1,000 words. Like, like I was expecting, like it's in the right hand corner, there's a rip at the edge. Like the rest of the divider, it looks intact. Like to spend 18,000 for one rip, I was gonna suggest duct tape, but like
It struck me as a
18
seam
grand.
failure. Like when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, the seam must have come apart.
I how do people feel about removing it?
I'm okay with removing it.
same here.
I have a question though with regard to the Civic Center. I don't mean to go off track here, but wasn't that gentleman supposed to come in and make the case for his tables?
Dan, I don't know if we ended up. It's a simple request. So they just need new tables for the Civic Center. We could ask them to come in if the committee thinks it's worth it. It's an $8,000 ask for tables.
But Frank Leone seemed to think that they really needed it.
I think they do. That's what I heard as well. So, it's a small enough amount of money.
Okay, fair enough.
I forget. I think it's on. I can't see it right now. I think it's scrolled
It's
up
under miscellaneous.
like 8,000 or something. Oh, it's below, right? Yeah. I don't know. Generally, I don't know. It's such a little bit amount of money, but it's up for discussion still. For the windows, you thinking that's not the window grates. So which window are these for all the windows, or which windows is this a phased project you're looking at?
So the way I'm looking at this now, I wonder if we treat it like historically the way that we have before. So call the grates the ground floor. So that's phase one. The first floor, phase two, which would be this line. And then should you need to go up to the the top floor where some of the tenants are would be your third phase. So I think if you're doing all the window grates in the bottom, it might make sense to do these after get one, finish one whole rung and then get the next one, you know, unless you're gonna do the whole thing holistically. This is another one too. There is a potential where I could look at a green communities eligibility for, especially if I'm getting, you know, a higher energy rating than what's physically there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so this is a, I don't know, is it a historic building? Do you have to replace with certain types of windows? You don't have, like, refurbishment is not an option opposed to replacement.
So refurbishment is, we definitely need a little more time to get somebody in to do that. Luckily with this building is the windows are more common. They're not 8 feet tall and 4.5 feet wide. So to refurbish them, maybe you take a more palatable approach to that, and you know, you just start not nickel and diming it, but you know, taking a window at a time or two windows at a time and having somebody that's really into refurbishing them, or explore, you know, a wooden option that's a direct replacement. But
Yeah,
I think
refurbishment is generally more expensive. A full refurbishment is going to be more expensive than a replacement window per window. But if you're looking for historic preservation, then that's your option outside of a, you know, architectural, fully custom window for, you know, to make it look. So I assume you're just replacing, similar to the senior center, right? Like they didn't get historic representation, but I think they got replacement, what, vinyl windows?
so. Those were custom made vinyl to
Custom vinyl.
mimic the same aesthetic that's there.
Right.
Just the
Like, does the
materials
Civic
different.
Center need to have that same match? Is the building itself covered in a way where you have to consider that when it comes to windows?
I think yeah, it's a consideration because you don't want to change the fabric of the building or like the
Right.
exterior componentry to it. Um, I think honestly, between the green communities potential option there, or you know, we were able to get a couple of grants related to historic preservation for some of the stuff we were doing on the common. There's another avenue there. Um, if the group wanted to defer that to allow us some more time to do more due diligence and really lock in there, I don't have an issue with that, really.
I'd love to see like how many windows and what the phased approach would be. I wouldn't want it to take forever, but a reasonable phased approach. And if basement windows would be part of that, that, you know, like you were saying, could be considered maybe a phase one.
Mhm.
So
In the,
that
narrow.
makes the most logical sense to me because it's the way we've handled every other building. We've gone floor by floor. So it would at least be consistency on the part of past practice.
Makes sense.
So we comfortable with 0 for now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Selfishly, if we could keep the doors at North Ave, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll give you that. I would be fine with that.
Okay, so the Yule School,
Do we have any new information on the lease?
I do not.
Okay,
It is still on the forefront of what I'm trying to get for you.
Yeah,
think-
I was gonna check in, Joe. I was gonna try to help you out. I was gonna email Steve's office and have them direct me to it. I know you got a lot in your plate right now, so
Oh,
I was
that's
gonna
fine.
I was gonna reach out just to see if I could try to get it, but if they won't
I
talk,
think for now, the only one I would recommend hanging in there on is the floor abatement, just because they're walked on. The desks move on it. You know, it's something that wear and tear is happening to daily. As far as the rest of it, I mean, the boilers are running, they're working. Both of them are. So it's not like we're in a situation where we have one. And as far as my level of awareness is, the univents aren't inoperable. You know, and then the roof, to put the roof on that, that's another one where what's the long-term plan here? Not 100% sure.
the boiler replacement has been on our list for, I don't know, 4 years now at least.
yeah.
Yeah. So some of it is, you know, we want to replace them. And, a good part of that is that's the last building out there. But it's a unicorn, I guess, in a way where it is the last one out there, but it is the only one that has a different occupancy in it than what the town would be doing. Um, so, and then they get asked the question is, what's the long-term plan here? Do you really want to put, new lead lag, high efficiency boilers in something that may stay rented, may be closed, may be repurposed? There's a big unknown there.
And this is the only boiler, and the boiler is the only, there's no redundancy.
No, there's two in there.
There is two, but the one that's being replaced is the one that's on all the time, or are both on? Sometimes the redundancy is a boiler that sits next to a boiler, and that boiler's never run in 30 years. That's my experience sometimes with these old redundancies.
We had that situation happen at the Greenwood before we did it. There's no building management system or anything like that there. So I don't know if they run in lead lag parallel. I'd have to ask to really know that, but I don't have any information that I can think of off the top of my head that says that you have an inoperable asset in either one of them. How exactly they function, I'm not 100% sure, but I can get that answer.
Yeah. My comment to the committee here is like, my worry with the Yule is there could be a situation where, that maybe the lease is up, or maybe maybe there's discussions of this being utilized in a different way. So dropping money into it may not make sense if it's not going to be carried over to its new use. But that's sort of been the discussion the last 4 or 5 years, and things have been getting kicked out almost yearly. So the school is just getting aged and depressed, right? Like, we're not maintaining it, even though it's a town asset. So I'm hesitant to like keep on punting the boiler, right, for the 5th year in a row, or 4th year in a row at least. But if it's going to be repurposed and they're gonna have a whole brand new heat system, then this is where I have trouble with the Yule School. So I'm just speaking.
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty because we don't know the details.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would happen if the boiler just broke down? We would be obligated somebody would be obligated to fix it or replace it then, no?
We PM them regularly anyway. So we would
Excuse
go-
me, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, sorry about that. We would do preventative maintenance on them anyway. Or if they had a no heat call, we're the ones showing up first. So, like any other building in town, even, school, light department, it doesn't matter. If you gave us a call and said you were in trouble, we're gonna come and try to help you however we can.
Yeah, but I think if the boiler just completely died, right, and would need to be replaced, it's January, right? So we're halfway through a fiscal year. Like, that's the point where it then goes to the finance committee to talk about paying out of their reserve fund. Like, that's what the
Exactly.
reserve fund is there for, I think,
Yep.
is really the question.
Yep.
I am so I just don't have institutional history about the town and how long the Yule School's been this other, leased school out of the building. Like, I know nothing about any of that. But I don't want to put a bunch of money into a building that we just say this thing's getting old, and whatever future purpose it's going to have is a tear down project anyway. Like, because we're going to want to use the land for some completely different purpose. Like, if there's no plan, then I don't know if I really want to put in $300,000 this year into something that 3 years from now we're going to say the whole thing is getting scrapped. Like, I don't. Or now that we've put all this money into it, God forbid, now we can't scrap it. Like, now we have to keep it the way it is. Like, without any sort of direction to the purpose of or the future of this building, I don't know if we should be putting money into it or if we shouldn't be putting money into it. So I think we need information from town council and the administration as to what they're thinking the future of the Yule School is, or how far out any decision on that's going to be made. If they're like, we're not going to worry about that building for 10 years, then yeah, we should be putting money into it. But if they're like, in 2 years, we're going to make a decision, then I don't know if I want to be putting a bunch in.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anyone?
My thoughts on the Yule School are the same as I think everyone else. It would be good to know. I mean, especially with after talking to the school department and the constraints on the preschools and the elementary schools, not to make predictions unfounded, but wouldn't totally surprise me to see that get repurposed if there's 1 or 2 years left on that lease. So
Yeah. Okay. Any other? So Joe is recommending at least keeping the floors, which we have funded prior. That's one of the only things we've actually ever approved historically at the Yule is the floor abatement.
We've
So-
kind of done the same approach. It's been ad hoc in a way where if we identified potential trouble, we isolated it and then paused. And then as another section caught up or another classroom caught up, we identify it, we isolate it, and then we pause. It was just another round of that.
is it possible to make this like different color, like whatever, and maybe reevaluate if we get the lease? Because the other thing is, like, for all we know, there's 20 years left on the lease or something, and we really should be putting some money into it. But
So do you
Yeah,
wanna, well, we can make them, I think we decided yellow was the,
Go
Right.
orange. Let's go orange.
all right. We get out my
What color,
color.
Garrett? You name the color. What color do you want?
I was thinking orange as well.
Okay, we're going orange.
Here we go.
You have
And
like a
that- that's
certain,
signi-
Move. The
That's a-
committee's making moves.
So that signifies that we need more information. Is that
More
correct?
info. I'll leave Joe. I'll kick in. I'm going to email Steve's office and just ask him if he could lead me in the right direction, and I'll see what I can pull together. Okay.
for the sake of the running tally, do you wanna change any of these for now, just to see where it may or may not take you?
I was going to suggest keeping floor and zeroing out the others for now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For that purpose.
Agree.
Just 'cause
Small dollars relatively too.
not a ton of money, right?
Safety. Yeah.
Okay. The Woodville. So the boiler to heat pump drawings and plans, just because it's smaller. I wonder if I can use a grant for that instead.
Is there any ARPA money left to be spent, Joe? Or has it all been appropriated? Do you know?
So it all had to be appropriated by December and all has to be spent by the following year. I don't know if anybody will be under what their appropriation is and if anything could shave off and get repurposed. They did do that with a couple of things. So like they put some money aside to do like some historic preservation due diligence. If we ended up finding out that when we were going after the bandstand and the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, we did a lot of it. So the town council repurposed it. We actually put a roof on the little red schoolhouse on Prospect Street instead. There's potential there for that, for sure.
Thinking HVAC. I know HVAC was one of the approved things, but if it's already been, if the ship has sailed, then it doesn't matter. But if there was any ability, like I feel like some of these upcoming HVAC things would have been great ARPA expenditures. But what do
So then-
people? Yeah. So what do we think about the Woodville roof? Is that per the comment about roofs? Do we want to keep that in?
So can I make a recommendation on that? Do folks mind if maybe we make it a different color to come back to it and zero it out for now?
Ye-
I just want to get a better sense as to what our timeline is on this.
Yeah, don't zero if you can. Just make it yellow, please. Keep it in. And maybe write a note next to it to come back to it. Just make it yellow at least. Well, you want to check that number?
No, well, that too, like, that's a given, but I want to get a better sense as to like Are we
How
thinking
bad is the roof, right?
Yeah, like how,
right? Or
yeah.
I could pull the invoices that have been paid out to the roofing contractor that we have on call and get it. I want to get an idea of like have we been visiting here a lot because something's going from bad to worse? Are we in a sense? I know, and I've been told this and reviewed it too. I just don't know it. Sitting here with you, of course.
Again,
No.
I have to ask, who made this recommendation?
Our buildings group did.
Okay,
So
And the
this is something, so
building,
they meet with Tim, who you met last time, at least monthly, kind of always talk about what's going on and what we're doing. And then the school side, the DPW side will kind of put together their first capital list. Then they kind of caucus and say, oh yeah, we're looking for this, you're looking for that. Do any of our priorities align? You know, do we strengthen our argument or advocation for this? This one was from my side, that's getting asked here.
yeah, so the school was at 003, I think, right? Woodville.
Yes.
So
Wow.
it's 22-year-old roof. If it's a rubber membrane, useful life for rubber is 20 years, but I have rubber roofs that have lasted 25 to 30 years with proper maintenance. So yeah, your roofer giving a sort of state of the union would be very helpful to understand if there's any problems is the membrane tearing, which the rubber tends to do. That's the first sign, or it gets brittle. It would be great to understand the condition of this roof.
So
Agreed.
that's exactly what's good. Like the senior center, if you looked at the seams, especially when they come up to the flashing,
Yeah, where it goes up, it starts pulling.
very obvious.
Yeah,
This
right.
one, I'd like to understand the case before um, commitments made.
Yeah. Um, what,
Joe, on
oh, sorry,
the,
kid.
excuse me. Okay, on the Doll Bear, how come there's a green community mark for the 80-ton RTU and not for the 60? Could we get them for both?
It could be either one. I would
Oh,
have recommended splitting the difference on it if you had the capacity to do so, picking one, and then come back for the next one after
so,
the fact. But you know,
okay, so how does this work? It's per project, it's per, um, for example, you're getting 150,000. Would the grant cover $150,000 worth, or is it?
yeah. So I think we could identify a need with the scope, and what the energy savings would be, and
Uh-huh,
we can apply for up to I believe $250,000.
okay,
So you should be able to accomplish at least one of these,
good.
potentially two. I don't know.
Yep.
The only caveat to that is um, the submissions are competitive, so they want to award as much as they can, but there is
Yeah,
the slim potential that if you hedge your bet on this 100%, you could be told no.
yeah, sure.
Who knows? But if there's any way we can leverage that into taking more of these items off this list,
Right.
rest assured that's going to happen.
I'd almost want to do the larger one, expecting that prices will be going up considerably over the years, right? So trying to take the bigger one while we can, but at the same time, either one is probably fine if people have the appetite to do either.
Right.
So,
Well,
right now, are there two RTUs at the Dolbear? They're both just kind of getting towards the end of their life.
Same thing, similar to kind of what Phil was saying about the roof at the Woodville. So they're original to the last major building renovation there. So they're, somewhere 20, 25 years. So they're up there, basically at the point now where if you look at their expected life, they're right there or about to be right there. And one of the things that happened with when the CARES funding and everything came out with COVID, originally, the chiller on this building, I believe it was, we were able to replace through that. So Tom Walsh in emergency management was able to help us secure that. and lock that in. So this will just be getting some of the rest of it.
I'm fine. I would be fine with either one of these as a green, whether it's the 80 or the 60 ton. I I I, I don't know. I think we should do one of them.
I think we should do one and nix the other, kind of
Yeah.
like what we did with the library, and just
Yeah.
split the.
Yeah, good
And
idea.
that too. Yeah.
So
Wanna-
which one, someone roll the dice. Like, is there one do you think it's in worse condition?
I can find that out in we can pick one for now, and what I'll do is maybe we just turn it yellow to revisit it. And if for some reason we have to flip flop, we can flip
Exactly.
flop.
So pick the 80.
Right. Keep the 80
Yeah.
and
Okay.
zero out the 60 and let's
Yep.
make the 80 yellow and revisit it.
And if we can flip flop the other way, then great, we save 30,000. But
Right. Right. If they're both a mess, then well, we gotta send the HVAC mechanic a good Christmas gift.
Mhm.
Keep him happy, or her. What about we skipped? I think we skipped the Woodville boiler to heat pump drawings and plans. The
Yeah.
15 grand. I'd be okay with that money. It doesn't sound like a lot for what you're getting, but maybe the town has a lot better consultant pull than I do in the private world. But if you think that's what's going to take, like I wouldn't have a problem with that 15, assuming we can afford it.
Same here.
So
Yeah,
that
I'm fine with it.
it's really just a shot in the dark, an hour into a dark room. I just scoped it off of I think to convert the project, the the value is $1 million, let's say. Some of the other engineering stuff we do, like plans, specs, and estimates, is X% of the budget. So I figured, for that price, we should be able to get the drawings we need, but we would still need time to get in with someone to help us with that. That's another one too, where I think it might be able to leverage the green communities funding to generate the plans for a follow-up construction project. So I threw that in there just for transparency to say there is a potential there too.
Yeah, I think in FY24 we did a similar thing for the Greenwood School. So you did a study, they were looking to add mini splits to the whole school. So that might be a good data point too, whatever you paid for that.
Want to just make it yellow then, and I'll get a better answer
Yeah.
to that. We'll come back to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So the Galvin.
Thoughts on the Galvin, anyone?
Well, did
Yeah,
they,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Frank.
think that they asked for the loading dock heater last year, did they not?
Mhm.
Yes.
For some reason, it kind of always seems superfluous to me. But then again, I don't work there, and I don't know, maybe we could do it out. I mean, it's not a big request, but every little bit helps at this point. Can you shed any light on that, Joe?
I mean, I don't work there. I know it's a loading dock, right? I'm sure it gets cold.
Yeah, I think, the fact that they've asked for it a couple of years in a row here. I worked on a loading dock. I can tell you when it gets cold, it gets cold.
Yeah.
But it's only $10,000.
What about the other requests? What about the water heater and the fillers?
The water, the
Water,
don't really sound, they sound trivial to me. I don't know why, but
The water heater?
I think that would be more important than the loading dock, but
the water heater, yeah.
I think for me, like for both the water heater and the loading dock, I'm trying to picture like how often does something like that get used at a middle school? You know, like how often do they use the loading dock? What's the water heater for? I'm not doubting that they're used, but just trying to get a sense of like,
It's
Well,
just the
the loading
main.
dock is used by the maintenance people, so I mean, they've already got a kind of tough, uh, you know, job anyway. So I would argue that that's probably something that I don't know.
Is this like the main water heater to the building?
It looks too low to be the main one.
It looks
I was
like
just
it's a
gonna say
small-
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
one of the small janitor size ones, janitor closet size ones.
It's probably like a 200 gallon or something like that. I don't think it's the main deal. You know what? You want to,
Maybe yellow, if you could find
yeah,
out what it services, how old it is. Well, actually, it's 10 years old. 11, it's as old
Yeah.
as the building, I'm
Well-
gonna get. So if it's a 10-year warranty, if it's a 10-year heater and it's 11 years, we should replace it because those things are notorious for busting the
Yeah.
day after the
yeah,
warranty.
I would keep that more than the loading dock, but
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I would
agree.
say, but if it's servicing like a closet, it's again, I still worry about those things busting the day after the warranty expires.
Agreed.
Um, bottle fillers and loading docks, I'm less likely to think that those two are needed in terms of the list of that we have in front of us. Not that they're not needed, just in terms of priorities.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm
I would
surprised
almost,
bottle fillers on there in the first place. I would think they would have plenty, given that it's a new school. But
Right.
you want to zero those?
loading dock.
Yeah.
I'd zero them out.
Yep.
I'd propose to zero if people want to make, I'm open.
I
to
mean,
Yeah,
we
I
could do
would.
half on the bottle filler like we did at the senior center,
yeah,
where, you replace the grodier looking one and then the next year you do the other one. But um,
I'll withdraw
We
my
can
vote
also-
on the loading dock.
I mean, I get
no. Shane keeps on having. He's texting me. He's having laptop issues. He'll probably come back on. Okay, yeah, like that's fine too. Like halving that, give him something, but we can't fulfill the full request. I don't know. Loading dock heaters.
I'm somewhat unmoved by the loading dock heater. I also worked the loading dock for a few years doing overnight. It's colder in the room where you're receiving the stuff, but it's not as cold as outside. Like it's
Yeah.
to me, I feel like we have a lot of pretty essential items on here, and that doesn't feel as urgent. But
mhm.
I guess my only point was that loading dock, the only people in the building, in that whole building that aren't sitting in a heated building all day are the ones that are working on the loading dock.
Yeah, but you're not at the loading dock all day either. Like
No,
that's
you're not.
you're
No,
just
not.
doing the receiving when it shows up. So like that's
Yeah, Tim O'Brien would know best.
Um,
Like I guess it's got to be the custodial staff, and they're not
Yeah.
sitting, when there's a delivery or whatever, of course, but
Yeah,
they're
that's who
generally
I'm
taking
talking
care of the
about.
whole school.
Yeah, I'm not married to it, so.
Yeah.
Leave it off.
Good, Dan, because we're cutting it. You'd
Yeah,
have
yeah, no,
Yeah.
we got a long way to go here.
yeah.
we still do. Yeah, my calcs, we still have over a million, well over a million to cut. So where are we? It's getting late, so just time check with people. I've been trying to keep it to 2 hours. We okay? Just keep on working for a little bit.
Yeah, keep going.
yeah, I'm good.
We're almost there.
Okay, I know.
Mini splits.
I'm surprised that wasn't mentioned by Tim on Tuesday. Did that just pop up or no?
I think this generated from my group.
That was
Oh,
DPW. My only thing is you're going to need the electrical service upgrade for the mini splits.
Right.
I almost feel like the chicken has to go, the egg has to
Right.
come before the chicken or vice
Like, yeah,
versa.
the chicken before the egg. Yeah, like so. I don't think I would. I was zeroing that out in my head because I think you need to do the electrical service first.
Yeah. And-
What
and
is
they
the
didn't
mini
ask-
split? I'm sorry to
Like
ask such a
those heat
fundamental.
pumps, the electric heat pumps that you see, then people put those registers in their homes, so it provides air conditioning and heat. It's electric. It's a heat pump electric. It's very efficient.
Okay, I understand now. I have a heat pump.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are
those-
heat and AC, right? Both
Yeah.
of them?
Yeah,
The
like
price difference
But
between the
they
unit.
didn't, yeah, they didn't ask for the heat for the mini split. They didn't, there's a reason they didn't ask for them. I mean, they don't,
like I would say we zero it out because they're gonna need the electrical upgrade first.
good.
Okay. And then ADA or elevator badge access, is that back on the table?
You know what? I meant to ask. I was at the high school, touring the high school today, and the person wasn't there. I was going to ask them if the high school is being designed with elevator badge, but I don't think it is because the elevator is going to be used to get to the new auditorium. So I don't think there's going to be badge access at the new high school for the main elevator bank. I don't know. The more we look at, the more I see how much we have to cut. Like the last meeting, I thought this was a good idea, but like likely to zero it out. I'm fine keeping it if people think it's a good ad for the school.
I'm okay keeping it for now, but it might just.
Well, this is the Galvin, this is a security issue, isn't it?
No, I think this people are using the elevator and they're not supposed to, and so this would prevent that from happening. But I'm sure that in some way that is a security issue. Yes. ADA, we approved 50 grand last year. Like, I would not want to be a committee not approving ADA improvements in town.
Let's, we'll mark it to come back to it. I'll expand on it for next time.
It'd be nice to know if we use the 50 and there's more than enough to need another 50. I think that would make a good argument to keep it if possible.
Yeah. In this section, really quick, I'll recommend the basketball court, sidewalks, and the paving and drainage. Defer it. That makes more sense for my group to go to town hall with a warrant article, under park improvements and pull the whole thing together as one, to clean it up out of here and let
You would
the
do-
town meeting decide.
Say it again.
Zero those out.
Zero them out. Now I'm gonna ask for those in a warrant article, not through this.
You said Yule B-ball,
Yep.
sidewalks.
Yep. So basketball, sidewalks, and then Sullivan.
Oh, and Sullivan. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's okay. And
That's-
do that. You'll do that as a warrant article.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Can you
Love
put
it.
the,
And honestly, for me, the pricing we get from the paving contractor, where they're doing so much, should be advantageous to us to try to ask them for a quote on a scope expansion change order versus
Yeah.
bringing somebody in separately. I bet you I could probably do it a lot cheaper that way.
That's a good idea.
did you just denote it in that column D?
WA
Yeah.
warrant article.
So which leaves, if I can request, can we just pause on this one? I'll have better information for you next time. I had a question related to the foundation that I need to do for this, whether or not I could do it cheaper than what was originally proposed.
Well,
Yeah. I'm for doing the cremation wall. But it is like my last in, like in
I
my
would
head,
agree.
just because until we absolutely need to put one in, like it still sort of fits into the nice to have, but I totally understand why we want to head in that direction for the purposes of the space and everything else, and we utilize some land that wouldn't be used otherwise. Like all of that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
just, I think, last in my head.
I agree.
So we have there is no kind of wall there now, cremation wall at all, right?
No, we don't have any,
Okay.
not at the moment.
And you're finding that there is a demand for it.
Sam, are you suggesting we take it out or not?
I'm fine with having it in. but if we're over by, the 140,000, then that's
Yeah.
the thing that we cut. Like I'd rather,
Okay,
because it's not, we have to close the cemetery next year because we have no room anymore.
Yeah.
We need to think about a better long-term plan besides everybody taking up a 6x4 slot for themselves.
Joe, would you know how long it would take to build one?
So basically they mill them out of solid Vermont granite. So a couple of months. It's not in all the things that take a long time. This one is going to be on the shorter end compared to some of them that we've experienced in the last year or two. So it's not too bad. I think, pouring the foundation to it, you can just let the concrete cure. And if we were to move forward on it sometime late spring, early summer, we could probably have it in place by the fall, I would think.
I'm with Sam. I mean, if it comes down to that amount, that's an obstacle to our goal, then we should just get rid of it. But I do think it's something you have to consider in the next cycle.
Okay. So where are we? 150, 40. So team Landrigan team room renovation. Given
I'm kind of blanking on this one. Landrigan Field.
So this is the bathrooms, right? I would assume. I've never been. I have no. The team room is that locker rooms for away and home. Like I don't know the.
Oh yeah. So
What is this doing?
when you go if you go into the field,
Yeah.
the building, the garage to the left,
Yep.
the towny jargon is it's a team room. So it's halftime. The football teams go in there. It's really whatever's going on up there spends halftime in that building and whatnot.
I think
The referees have a room there. It stores whatever equipment's needed on the field. The band might use it in some of the off times, so they don't have to like drag their xylophone or something up the hill.
Right.
It's a little
So
bit
I see them doing that. It's amazing when I see the brand and all their machines going up and down. Who requested this? Who would have initiated this request?
My group did.
I'm going to say we keep it. I mean,
It's a yellow at best, Frank. I guess at this point. Like,
okay.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
we're still close to like $1 million off. Is my best guess. About a little under maybe. We still have to make some. So I'm fine keeping it, but I think as we meet next week, we're going to have some tough decisions with these yellows.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm okay with it making the yellow.
Like like the rockery, like that Minuteman in the fountain is like basically like every picture of Wakefield. So I would say, of course, we have to maintain that, and I would propose we keep the 35 for that.
So
I agree.
there's a potential with this one too. We've had good luck writing the delegation to see if we could get budget earmarks for it. Again, no guarantees there. I just want to put it out there that there is the potential for that. So should we decide to ask Kate Garabedian or Donald Wong to, hitch onto this and advocate for us?
yeah.
They're very public. They look great when the pictures come after the fact. The likelihood of success there, I'm not sure. It is an avenue.
So leave it in for now. Yeah, good.
They leave it in for now. Again, that's
Yep.
right in down. It's a downtown thing. I don't know. Dolbear, I'm less likely to keep Dolbear yellow and almost want to make it red. The playground, if the Walton's happening, but that's just because I'm looking for big numbers to cut, not because I don't think there's a need. But to your point, Joe, you're saying like this may not even meet. This number may not reflect this like no man's land in between that may have to get redone too.
I would have to put in an ADA compliant walkway from the parking lot or from the asphalt to that. There's no way around that.
So does it make more sense to come back next year with the more comprehensive request for this then?
If that's what the committee chooses to do, so sure.
Like if this
That
doesn't.
that makes
Yeah.
sense if I think they probably were just like, we've done rubber on all the other playgrounds, so here's the rubber, that's how much it costs per square feet. Like I don't know the if the consideration of getting there was part of the calculus as opposed to this was just the last thing to get done so that all of them have been
Right.
rubberized.
Well, what, anybody recall what we paid for the first one?
Which first one? The first Doe Bear? Yeah, I can.
The first doll bear rubber surface. I think we did that like 3 years ago or 2 years.
Bear was FY 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it roughly this amount?
Yeah.
I could tell you because the way that the company that supplies the playground
Right.
is different than the rubber company. So I could break that out and tell you what that was.
We approved 240,000 for playground and rubber surface. So it
Oh,
wasn't just rubber surface. So I don't know.
oh,
So we
yeah.
would need the breakdown to understand.
And
Okay.
then we even expanded that. So the town council put an allocation for ARPA money to do a ADA compliant swing.
Right.
So back there, it's called a WeGo, but there's a wheelchair swing. So there's a ramp to it. You can actually, a child in a chair can utilize that. So that was incorporated into it too.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's my biggest pull with this one. Like I know it would benefit someone in a wheelchair or with mobility to have the rubber surface. So like moving it up another year doesn't benefit those people. And I hear that. I feel that, but like I feel like it's a bigger project than this is representing. And that's what I'm hearing from Joe too.
I mean,
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's definitely needed, but maybe we should.
And then
Hunt
the
it.
Maple Way too. I'm just while we're looking at both, those are two big ones. Did we?
Oh yeah, we oh yeah, I sent yeah, so
I
okay.
saw the softball request that you sent, and yeah,
What about zeroing out Doe Bear for now?
Yeah.
Are we okay making that spread?
yeah.
I mean, that would have completed the cycle of all the playgrounds though.
It would have. We've been doing one a year, so we would still, the Walton, even though it's not a playground, it is a play area, would sort of check a box of us doing one a year.
Okay.
My worry is that if this isn't going to cut the full project, I'd rather do it next year as our one a year and getting it all done. Rather than, but we may not be able to afford to this year, I guess.
Okay.
It would be nice, but like we may just not be able to afford to do two. And the Maple Way, like this next request, if people read through, like it seems like an amazing idea. Like the Maple Way is tough right now. Like I think this is I think I would put the Maple Way 100,000 over the 125,000 if we had the ability to pick, if we even have the money to do either. So.
The only thing I'll add to the Maple Way one, I read that presentation today for the first time, like many of you. I don't know if the amount of money we have in here for a placeholder will actually accomplish building that back field.
Yeah.
And I feel like Judas was saying that, but if you look at the other field that we built behind the Woodville, that was $200,000. So I'm trying to picture that going in there. I think you probably have like a $250,000 project if you're gonna do that there, because there's some tree removal, and then depending on how it lays out, there's some benches and stuff we're gonna move and then redo the pathway. So that might take a little finesse to be able to figure that out exactly. As far as like batting cages or any of the other amenities that are mentioned in that, and then giving a facelift to the little bathroom amenities that are there. easy peasy stuff. A little bit more thought behind the back piece just to get it to tuck in right. We'll probably have to do between, at least now and next Tuesday, if not maybe a little longer potentially.
Is there an abutter issue with the fencing? Uh,
No, I don't think so. I think you
It would be helpful to know where because there was no indication where the fencing is. That there is it the perimeter fence? Is there fencing in the outfield? They're looking, and that I guess so. These are all coming from Steve's office, via Steve's office. It would be great to understand, like, if we could partially fund this. Let's say we could come up with 50 grand for the bathroom, or if it was a perimeter fence because the fence is falling down. Like, is there a priority on this that we could maybe fund some of it? But to your point, when I was seeing like the wetlands and the tree removal and the grading, like it's got to be more than 100,000 just to do the backfield alone.
uh,
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know
I,
where these numbers came from, so it's tough to say. It's needed. It would be a great upgrade. I 100% agree with the spirit of that presentation. Like it's a great asset, that Maple Way, that we could make some changes and make it a lot more usable. But I don't know. This 100 grand, I feel, is the bathroom upgrade. Knowing how much it costs to do my little bathroom in my house, like I'm gonna guess 100 grand is probably what it costs to do a public bathroom.
no, I mean, so this one, to accomplish that one, my group would take on the bulk of the labor and everything like that. It'd be a summer project for us. So the big expenses there, you're probably talking like acquiring the lights. We probably switch the thing to LED. We'd replace the appliances, so new toilets, new dividers, stuff like that. Um, I don't think you're at massive money there. Paint, the facelift, things like that. It's a shingled roof on it. I'm not 100% sure what the condition of that might look like, and then you know maybe replacing the hot water heater, whether you put an Insta hot in or something like that. But I
Mhm.
don't think your kitchen bathroom's probably going to be more
Yeah,
expensive than this one, because we can take the labor out of the cost.
I
Yeah.
mean, removing labor would definitely be the biggest savings by having this as an in-house operation. I guess my questions with this proposal, and maybe this is because I'm from a poor town and the softball and the baseball fields were, um, operated and maintained by the youth leagues. Like that, it was if the softball fields, if they wanted to host a tournament and it needed investment, then the 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 youth softball league needed to put that money into it. Like that's like from where I'm coming from. And obviously I'm at best aggressively 10 years away from having kids playing softball. So like I understand where maybe I'm not as invested in it or might not come across as invested in the Maple Way project. But I if the leagues are going to put up money to also help, like if they're saying we need 100,000 because we have 50,000 that we've raised and are willing to put into this, but we're just asking the town to help out because it is town property. Like if there's a public private partnership thing going on, I think this reads differently to me than just, hey, we want to do fun things and be able to fundraise for our league better, so you need to invest in it. Like that is where I rub against this a little bit. Like when they're like, we need a snack shop. Okay, but the town isn't gonna get the money from your snack shop. Like a different it's a different request in my mind. But um so if they're putting money into it, then I think there's a different discussion. And then my other aspect is this something that Steve put forward because they asked, like, how do we get this? And he was like, oh, I'll just put it in front of the capital committee for you. And he doesn't care. Or is this something that town council and the administration are like, this is something that we would want to see on this list, right? Like, what does it mean coming from Steve's office that this is before us? Is my other question.
I'll not to speak for him, but I guess I'll speak for him. I would say if it's coming from him, that there's some grassroots support to that anyway. Um, knowingly, I mean, like we just received it, so we're playing a little bit of catch up. So I think some of the questions that you have are good questions, and we need to get them answered between now and the next time we meet. Like I said, the presentation came today, so we get an idea of kind of what they're looking to do, or at least what's getting talked about out there. Now the question is, can we make it fit, or is anything accomplishable here?
Right. So
And what
I've
will that
had
be?
my daughter's been in softball for a while, so she's far outgrown the Maple Way at this stage. But I do know they've asked for the batting, like cages there for a while. I know that's, and I don't know if it came to this group particularly, but I know that's something they've been trying to get there. Um, and there certainly is a drainage problem as well, but
What's the drainage problem, Shane? Sorry, not to hijack the
so
conversation.
whenever it rains, home plate on both fields is just a flood. So it's and I know myself as a coach, I'd have to go out and push all the water off and try and get it so that the umpire would not cancel the game.
Yeah.
So the water should flow off the field as opposed, like it all kind of flows to home plate instead of going off the field. So just needs to be maybe regraded or something.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I was approached at some point last year by someone in the Wakefield Softball Association, and I suggest, they wanted to make modifications in a field, and, the Maple Way actually has land behind what's existing that's sort of foresty now and I had suggested they put a plan together of some sort and talk to town hall about how they would push that forward in the town. So I think this is probably some result of that conversation, but I would say highlighted orange for more info needed at this point, Joe. If you could ask Steve if he has a point of contact, I could try to figure out if it's the same person. I don't know. I forget. Unfortunately, I forget the person's name, but at least
I
try to
think
get more
I,
info to these points. My question for you, Joe, directly: bathroom upgrade. The bathrooms are single use and are not handicapped accessible. If we start messing with it outside of lights and paint, when we say upgrade, do we start getting into a risky territory of having to make the bathrooms accessible?
You have to look at the door width and ask Ben.
It's small. It's old.
yeah,
It's an old
Oh
steel
yeah.
door. It's
yeah.
pretty
They
basic.
they would probably likely go from, I think, the dual stall or toilet urinal type setup. It would
Toilet
probably,
urinal.
yeah, they'd probably go singles. We have to, that's what I mean. Some of the due diligence, we have to measure it to figure out, like, do we have the turning radius
The
for a
turning, right?
chair?
Like it's pretty tight. Like
Right.
I worry like when I hear upgrade, like oh no, now we just triggered we either we triggered it or if we're going to upgrade it, we really should make this per the ADA report or whatever. I don't know if the town is committed to any public facility making ADA in some way if you touch it. So I throw that out as a roadblock to this request, but just more of a is it going to raise a red flag somewhere else if we start touching it?
That's one of the things we're gonna figure out. So like, I don't think the threshold to step in is too high. So I'd have to measure the distances. Even if I had to put a ramp in, like I could make one out of concrete. Um, Once I figure out how far I gotta go to hit the grades I have to go, but I need a little bit more time to get that to kind of figure it out. And then measure the interior space to see how could you potentially lay it out, still get the turning radius for the chair,
Right.
and then what's the door opening? Can I get an 88 door on it too?
Yeah.
Which it should be what? It's probably a standard door because it's exterior, but you never know.
Yeah, to Phil's
So,
point, I do know it's small. It's not a lot of space for sure.
so Joe, will you ask Steve who the contact is, or is this something that you want me to reach out to Steve and maybe I can connect and ask him quote? What would you prefer?
No, I have no problem. And then I'll share that with you
Okay.
and with
Yeah,
everything
it would be
else.
good to collect more info on this one. Okay. It's 9:30, folks. I'm exhausted. But are we okay for tonight to stop here, or do we want
Yeah.
to go through? Do we have
Bottom
we have
line,
these? We just have miscellaneous to get through?
Oh, hell, it's just $1 million.
Okay, so let's push through. What do people think about $8,000 in tables?
That, it just seems very high to me. I don't know how many tables they need, but that just seems like a big
This
number.
is 25 at 8. Who's the quick math? Let's
It was over $300 a table. Like that was a diver, or it was like over 200 something dollars a table.
Yeah,
Like
no,
it
it's
seemed like it,
320. Yeah.
yeah, like
20 a
it just,
table. Do they all need to be replaced? You know, like are some broken or
5-foot round granite white plastic folding table, 320 bucks a pop from WB Mason.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know why the $50 white plastic folding tables with the metal that you buy at BJ's like aren't like enough. Like why are we buying these premium folding tables?
Based on what I
That's
heard previously is that they do get a lot of usage, and,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Frank Leone was strong on this, and we probably ought to have him here to explain that to us before we take it away. But put it in yellow or something.
Okay.
We can
Yellow.
invite Dan in too.
we can't, what's the gentleman's name? Kevin?
Dan,
Yeah,
Dan
Dan
McGrath.
McGrath. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, excuse me. I mean, 5 or 10 minutes would be helpful. I mean,
Yeah, like, you can get you can find one on Uline for half the cost of the WB Mason, but maybe it's a load requirement. Maybe there's a reason those are specific, but
yeah, I just want to know the specific, and I don't want to. I mean, we're talking about $8 million of requests, and we got to get it down to two, and I'm gonna nickel and dime the guy over an $8,000 request,
yeah, but
but
it's like,
it feels like it's twice as much as it needs to be, which is I think the reason I'm grading on it.
oh, you're asking a good question, but I think we should hear him out. Even if he sent us an email or something.
yeah.
And if Frank did bring this up,
Yeah, he was pretty emphatic that there was
yeah,
something to
it could deal with something like he
matter of courtesy.
yeah, he might have the way they're stored on dollies or something. It could be something we don't know about. So,
Mhm.
has
but
this come up before? Oh, sorry, Frank.
Yeah,
Is this a request?
I believe this is new. This isn't.
say it again, Garrett.
I was just wondering if this request has come up in prior years or if this is
Yeah.
like a
No, this is the first
don't
time
think
we've
so.
seen it, I think.
Invite, want me to invite Dan to a meeting or to send an email about this request?
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we can, you might want to ask him, can we do like 12 this year or 12 the next or 12 or 13, whatever.
Okay. We'll see. So let's just move on from that then.
Two-way radios.
You want to make it what are we snow machine DPW? Didn't you guys just get a snow machine for the Galvin?
So they did. Yeah, that's the schools though.
Oh, that's a school request. I don't know.
Well, this is the same issue as with the floor polisher. And I think one of us made this point last year about individual buildings having a snow machine. Is
So
this another one of the, where would this one be located?
so this one lives at town hall. When it snows out, it gets loaded into a 16-foot car trailer and they drag it around town.
Yeah.
So all the different buildings, they have their operations set up pretty slick. So they start at town hall, they do town hall, they load the trailer up, they bring everything with them to the next spot, drop the gate, take everything out, hit it, pick it back up, so they'll go from here to 9/11, then public safety, then Greenwood Fire. So this would live in that. So this would go wherever they go.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So that argues for this machine. Okay.
Just looking kind of at this whole list, I'm having a hard time cutting more from this. I mean, again, it sounds like that we need the traffic sign printer and the backhoe rebuild all seem necessary to me, but I don't know.
Right. I don't know. See, I see snow machine gone. I see traffic sign printer gone.
I'm a little curious about the traffic sign printer. Like, obviously that saves the town money. Do you have a sense of how much? Like, how much is an average sign and just to slap a new decal on it?
Oh, I do know. An average sign's a couple $100 usually. Give me 2 seconds, I can find that for you. This would essentially, you wouldn't be buying the aluminum blanks, so you'd just be reprinting them. So as they fade, because when you order them now, I can't just buy them from the company we get them from. I can't just get the decal. So I
Yeah.
have to
You gotta
buy
buy
the
the
whole
whole thing.
aluminum blank, and then the old one gets
Yeah.
scrapped, and you get whatever the aluminum value is worth on it.
This looks like something that would pay for itself very, very quickly.
It would speed it up too, so we'd be able to instantly do it instead of having to rely on somebody else.
How many new traffic signs do you feel do you replace every year?
Oh, hundreds all the time.
Really?
Every
It's-
vote of the traffic advisory comes up with a new sign to go in.
That's true.
It's not just a street sign, it's stop signs and,
Anything.
yeah,
Any
one
public
way.
sign of any
Rules and regs for the parks.
Right. Okay.
How
Yeah.
about, how about if we keep the traffic sign printer and defer on the backhoe rebuild?
That was where my head was at.
Like that.
Can you do it, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just lose the machine. I'm just trying to think that out.
Would you prefer, Joe, I guess, given the two?
That's an interesting question. Can I ask some questions on this side for that before I
Yeah.
get back to you on that, if you don't mind? I'll mark these yellow.
I mean, again, I kind of see, I can kind of see the need for both of those and maybe getting rid of the snow machine.
Dumb question. What is a snow machine? Is it like a big snowblower or?
Yeah, so I'll send you pictures of it. So it's essentially, it's like a 35 horsepower snowblower. So a Bobcat could do the job, but it's too big to get down the sidewalk. So this thing is 28 inches wide, but it's powerful enough where it could actually go out in the street if it had to. And
So
it's
you won't
powerful
find
enough.
one of these in the home.
No, you'd never want this in your home. It's too big. But if you had like a commercial apartment building, you'd love it.
Yeah.
So what this thing, how these things came into existence here, the building staff that we had used to go out and they would take all the buildings around, I mean, the sidewalks around town hall, and they would clear them with your standard 24-inch Simplicity Aaron snowblower. By the time they're out doing their thing, they have mountains of snow in front of them. They weren't built to do that. This thing was. So it took the work of 2 or 3 machines and put it into one that one person used. Well, I'll mark this one too, just for the sake of time today.
All right.
You want to make the Civic Center orange for more info?
Yes.
Yeah, so 3.2, 2.1, so we got 1.1. So this is, yeah, so next week's meetings will be the fun ones.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Would you
You
say we
got
have
it down to
one-
I will say, folks, we get there every year. You figure it out.
Yeah, we do.
It's a murky outlook today, but as we get through the next couple meetings, we just, it becomes easier to, it becomes a little easier to cut some of these than it is right now. So, but we'll get more info and we can discuss it. Oh, we didn't talk about the camera system upgrade. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's the last thing we have. This is just to replace everything we have basically in kind with a different model.
Are these inbuilt, these are building cameras?
Yeah, so we have some like it in Hart Street, in the pit, the cemetery. We have some on our buildings where we have things stored outside. And then our pumping stations all have them exterior. And then we have interior cameras there, face the alarm panels. And then like the Farm Street station's a good example. So in the left-hand side of that building, 3 stories down, there's a pit with a grinder in it. That grinder would chew a car up if you drop it in front of it. So we have eyes on that. So if anybody's down there working, we can kind of keep an eye on them remotely. And then there's wells to that too. So, you know, occasionally the wells will surcharge. So instead of sending somebody into that building to say, hey, the well's full or it's starting to flood the floor, we can look and see it before we commit, you know, somebody to go there. So it's kind of our eyes in the sky to cover us and our bases on some of that stuff.
And you don't think Water or Sewer Division could absorb that?
They might be able to take some of it. They have probably 12 out of the 56 that are out there. 14 maybe. I can proportion that though.
Like, you know, I think we should approve at least some IT expense. I think it makes some general balancing sense, but if we could lower it in any way and move it down to the water sewer, if they could utilize it, that could help.
I'll do some work on that.
Okay, so okay.
Well, okay.
Getting
Let's leave
there.
it there. Joe, if you could send this, send your sheet out when you get a chance, and then I'll follow up with Steve about the Yule. I'll email, and I'll try to get info from Dan about the tables, and then Joe, you'll get info about the Maple Way request.
Yeah, I told him when he sent me the presentation he had that we needed to touch base anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
Okay. And then our next meetings are next Tuesday and Thursday. So and then Monday the 17th, I'm trying to get us a room. It's just there's not many rooms, so I'm just waiting to hear back from Sherry. But it would be a room where it would be hybrid. So if you couldn't come in person, you could just still join by Zoom if you wanted. So, but I don't know if we even have a room or not to use on the 17th. And again, the goal would be, even though we did schedule a meeting on the 18th, my goal would be to have a vote for the 17th. I'm going to invite the Finance Committee liaison and Maureen from Town Council to that meeting. We usually have them come to our last meeting just to hear our final list. So I'm shooting on March 17th. So next week's 2 meetings are going to be, you know, a lot of scissors. So not that
Sounds
much.
good.
$1 million worth of scissors. Not that much.
You did 5 today. You haven't even hurt any feelings yet.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah. All I have is a sore tailbone. So, you know, it's
There you go.
yeah. Okay. If that's it, I would say we have a motion to adjourn at 9:44.
I move it.
Second.
Okay.
Me to it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, good work.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Have a good
Good
weekend.
stuff.
See
See you then.
Tuesday. Yep.
You
Thank
take
Thank
care.
you.
Good night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.